Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Sorry we're getting a late start here on TikTok. I'll explain why in here just a few minutes. I need to gather all my stuff. Switch out some Bibles. Alright. I'm going to give it a few minutes for some people to join in since I started late. Shabbat Shalom, Amy. Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Claude, Holly. Glad you guys could join. All right. Colton, good to see you. Well, I'll tell you guys who are here with me now why I started late. We got a banging at our door, like, I don't know, it was probably 45 minutes, an hour ago. And a guy who lives up the street was like, hey, the field behind your house is on fire. And went back there, billows of smoke. I mean, it was the whole, like, I live, like, I don't own it. I wish I did. That'd be really cool. But I live right next to a giant farm. Like, there's a couple of houses out behind me, and there's one next to me. But it's a big old giant field behind my house. They used to grow soybeans there when we first moved in, and then they stopped doing that. So now it's just tall grass, like really tall grass, like chest-high grass. And the whole field, that whole thing was on fire. And I was like, oh, goodness. And my neighbor right next door, he doesn't like live in the house anymore. And he comes like once every couple of weeks to mow the lawn. But he hasn't been out for a while. He's an older gentleman. And it's been really hot. So his field right next to mine was really tall. And the fire had gone into his field. So gotta love the country, though. Like, the fire department was trying, but it's a big field to contain. And there's a lot of other houses that are near it. And anyways, the guy down the street who warned us, he went and got his tractor. And guy who lives in a subdivision down the street that way, he went and got his Bobcat. And I got my lawnmower, and we were all out cutting fire line. It was actually like a little bit fun. Like, I was worried that it would spread. I was worried about my chicken coop for a while because it was headed straight for my chicken coop. But I felt like a firefighter again for a while. But we cut line for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and helped the fire department. So, and it's just like it's just another one of those things, you know, help your neighbor, you know, when things are bad and it can affect, you know, a lot of people. And I don't see that in any way, shape, or form as breaking Shabbat. That was a needed thing. You know, people's houses were going to catch on fire. So I went out, like I said, with my lawnmower, and I was cutting fire. My lawnmower actually caught on fire for a little bit because the grass gets caught up under the deck, and all that grass underneath it was catching on fire because I was running over spot fires. So I had to go back to my house and turn on the hose and hose it off, and then went back out there. But I think everything's good now, at least in my immediate area around my house and my neighbors. All the fire got knocked down and all the grass got cut down where it wasn't spreading anymore. So I was a lot more focused on that and starting on time. And then when I came back, I had to hose my lawnmower down again because it was still like smoldering up in there, even when I'd already watered it down. So that's why we started a bit late. But, you know, praise Yah, it hasn't affected anybody's houses as far as I can tell. And all it did was burn grass. But again, gotta love country folk out there helping as much as they can. And I know the fire department appreciated it because it's a pretty small fire department. They actually called. I saw the two other closest cities to us roll up while we were cutting fire line with lawnmowers and tractors and stuff. So, yeah, they were coming from all around to help out. So that was good. It was actually a pretty big, I don't know what that field is. Gosh, it's hundreds of acres. It's a lot of acres of grass that was on fire. So I don't know, but as far as I can tell, no one's house got burned down, and it was just tall grass that got affected. So praise Yah for that, but that is why we started a little bit late. Brandon, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Meltdown, good to see you. Yeah, Andy, it could have been really bad. If it got too close, start melting siding, or Yah forbid, burning my chickens out, because my chicken coop is out right next to this field, and it's just grass like all the way around it. So, have you watched the news lately? Yeah, it's hard to escape what's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. So, and it's all, as far as I'm concerned, it's all set up. They're trying to push their agenda. Big stuff was going to happen in order to forward what they're doing, and it's all just a push for the end as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, there's a lot going on right now. So, yeah, I wish I could escape it too. It'd be nice. Like, can't turn on the TV or open your phone without hearing something that, and it's not just all this immediate stuff. Like, there's a lot of other stuff going on right now that people aren't talking about. It's still out there, but it's not mainstream. So anyways, like I said, it tells us in the Bible that Yah put it in their hearts to carry out his will, because prophecy must be fulfilled. So as far as I'm concerned, it's all a push for prophecy to be fulfilled, but I'm not going to get too much into that. It's a touchy subject right now. And I don't know if I told you guys, I got a community guidelines strike on my TikTok. So right now, if you guys remember that video I did, and I don't even know why it got a community guidelines violation other than it just, goes against the grain, but it's the video I did. They didn't take it down on my YouTube. They took it down on my TikTok. It's the one about, have you heard the gospel of Jesus or the gospel Jesus taught? And normally when I submit an appeal on a community guidelines strike, it's like 2 or 3 days, and then they let me know, and they usually reverse it because they have no actual cause. Because you guys know I watch what I say, because I've had an account banned before, so I code my talk a little bit, but it's been 3 weeks. 3 weeks, and they've taken it down, and I still have an account strike on my TikTok account. So I don't know what's going on, but they're not answering. It just says reviewing, but it still shows a community guideline strike. So if I'm kicked off a live stream, or if I get another one and they don't, repeal that strike, then I could have this account banned too. So, it's one of those things. Like, I don't know. And like I said, it wasn't even like I don't even know what could have been on there that I said that got a community guideline strike. Like, I was telling the truth and it goes against the grain, but I didn't say anything that are normally they're like check marks for getting cut off a live stream or banned. I didn't mention the A, B, C, D, E, F, G people. I didn't mention any of the things you inject yourself with. I didn't mention how, anyways, I got to stop mentioning what I didn't mention, or this is going to get cut off. But I think you guys know I didn't mention the normal buzzwords that get you cut off. So I don't know. But I am on a strike on this account, and they're not answering my appeal. It's been 3 weeks. So I don't know. We'll see, but I guess I should watch it on these live streams, because if I get another one, then anything I do, they can remove my account. So I'm trying not to let that happen. By the way, if they do, I'm going to be honest with you guys. If they do remove this account, I probably won't start another TikTok. Maybe, I don't know, but probably not. I really don't like TikTok. It's just the platform I was called to spread the word on. It was reaching a lot of people. Now, most of us that are preaching the truth are hardcore shadow banned. Like, how do you have 80-something thousand followers on TikTok and your video gets 500-600 views, and I've been told by many of you that you have to go out of your way to actually go to my page and look at my videos because they won't pop up for you anymore, which makes sense. So I don't know. I might go to YouTube exclusively. I'm still small over on YouTube, so I'm way more under the radar. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully I don't get my account banned. I don't know. Andy, I can still do live streams on YouTube, and that's what I was talking about. I would probably go to like a live stream on YouTube and just do that. I guess there'd be a lot less riffraff. It'd probably only be a handful of you that come over and do the studies on the live stream, and maybe every once in a while somebody would pop in. I don't know, but it would probably be a lot less riffraff. Probably be more, more close. So, anyways, Kat, you found me on YouTube. That's cool. That's cool. I only know of like a handful of people that found me on YouTube. Most people from TikTok. But anyways, either way, we'll see what happens. But on TikTok, I am shadow banned, and they do have an account strike on me for, as far as I can tell, absolutely no reason. It's not like there was anything controversial in there. Heck, I should probably honestly take down the video I just posted last night about Jerusalem. That one's way more controversial than the one that I got a community guideline strike on. If you guys haven't watched it, I was just talking about how I showed some scripture and why I believe that Jerusalem was prophesied for destruction 3 times, and that if it does happen, and again, my opinion, my how I see scripture being interpreted, I'm not saying I'm 100% right on it. I could be wrong. But I gotta say, it's looking good to me. And if that happens, if Jerusalem's like laid waste, I'm pretty sure that's the abomination of desolation. And there's our like, here's your sign, you're 100% in the end times, and you don't got much time left. So if I see Jerusalem destroyed, I'm gonna know like, hey, there's no longer any question about where we're in the end times. And I mean, still, I really, really, like, personally, I truly believe we're in the end times, and we're not far from the end. But I don't have a way to prove it yet. I can't say, like, oh, I know for sure we're in the end times, or I know we're exactly at this point in the end. I can't say that yet because I haven't had the markers. Like, there's still a lot of stuff that's open to interpretation on it. So anyways, that's going to be a here's your sign, though. If Jerusalem's destroyed, for sure, no doubt, they're in the end. We're in the end. So we'll see. Like I said, it's just one of many, many interpretations of Scripture. I know I'm not the only one in this camp, though. I know a lot of other people feel the same way that I do, that are preaching the truth. So, but it seems like we're obviously the minority. That obviously this isn't how the mainstream sees it. The mainstream does not see it playing out that way at all. But the mainstream has a really bad habit of following men and getting stuff wrong. So just store it in the back of your mind. Just keep an eye out for it. And if it happens, you'll know. If it doesn't happen, well, I was wrong, and that's okay. I'm just reading the Bible and trying to understand it, and people get it wrong, right? So that's why I tell you guys when I'm giving you my opinions, because they're my opinions. But when I'm giving you black and white, this is absolutely what Scripture says all over the Bible, then that's a fact. There's no changing that. But when we're talking about prophecy and interpretation of it, there's some opinion and guesswork there, until we see it starting to actually happen. But anyways, Yes, we are in Numbers 14. We'll be in Numbers 14. I appreciate that, Kat. Thank you. Yep, there's definitely a big shift. This world has an agenda against any truth. Yeah, that's a fact. That is absolutely a fact. Much love to you as well, Brother Colton. All right, let's get into our study today. Enough excitement. End times talk. Big fire next to my house. Exciting Shabbat so far. Exciting. We'll say that much. Unfortunately, I have a massive headache right now. I woke up with one, and going out there in the bright sun and breathing all that smoke from that fire certainly didn't help. So if you guys, keep me in your prayers, I'm definitely not feeling the best. Might go lay down after this study. We'll see. But anyways, also a little quick housekeeping thing. Brother Dustin from TikTok, some of you might know him as like Remnant Heart Dustin. He was in a car accident and broke his femur, which is not great. So if you could just keep him and his family in your prayers, I would appreciate it. I know they would appreciate it. So please keep Brother Dustin in your prayers. Other than that, I am planning on doing a live stream study on TikTok for the Feast of Trumpets on the 24th of September this year. So that's coming up very soon. I will more than likely be doing it at 3 p.m. I will let you guys know if that changes. Probably within the next week, I'm going to put up a short video about it and let you guys know when exactly that study is happening. But for those of you that aren't going anywhere for the feast days, I'm planning on doing live streams. So that'll be the 24th this year. It'd be 3 p.m. Central Time, so I guess, depending on what time zone you're in. That's my plan right now. Like I said, if that changes, I'll put it on the video that I'm going to put out before the study. But right now, the plan is 3 p.m. Central for the 24th. So, and that'll be on TikTok. I'll restream it onto my YouTube. So, anyways, if you guys can make it, would love to see it, and I'll put a video out in a week or so confirming the details. All right. Other than that, let's get into Numbers chapter 14, if you'd like to follow along. And the entire community lifted up and sounded with a voice, and the people wept throughout the night. And all the sons of Israel continued to mutter against Moses and Aaron, and the entire congregation said to them, "Would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or in this wilderness. Only if we had died. And for what purpose is the Lord leading us into the land to fall in war? Our wives and our children will become spoil. Now, therefore, it is better for us to return to Egypt." And they said, they said one to another, "Let us appoint a leader and let us return to Egypt." And Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before the entire congregation of the sons of Israel. Now let's take a quick pause here and talk about this. They wanted to go back to Egypt. Like, I know I've mentioned this many times before. It talks about it, in other parts of the Bible as well. But it's just like they were delivered out of slavery and they wanted to go back. And this isn't getting into some of the details that we get in other parts of the Torah when it talks about this, but they're like, oh, well, back then we had garlic and onions and meat and so they had a very Babylon mentality, if you would. And I think about that for us because everyone's expecting a rapture on the Feast of Trumpets, and it ain't coming because this whole idea of a pre-trib rapture is not in the Bible. I heard somebody make a video about the rapture, and it's like, well, yeah, it doesn't actually say rapture in the Bible, but it also doesn't say grandfather. Does that mean grandfathers aren't real? It's like, that's completely different. And they referred to their grandfathers just as father, right? Because it was their extension. They treated them with the same respect that you would your father. It was like the rapture and the idea of the rapture isn't in the Bible. Not how it's taught in the mainstream. There will be a regathering of his people, and at some point, people will be caught up to meet him in the sky, but that is after after all this stuff goes down. Like, you can see at the very least, very least, the first 5 seals of Revelation need to play out before any regathering can happen. And it constantly tells you to endure, to be saved. It constantly tells you to pray, to escape the things that are coming. It constantly tells you all throughout this Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, it tells you that you're going to have to go through it, just like everybody else did. Why are we the generation that's so lucky? Oh, now all we have to do is believe in Jesus. We don't actually have to do anything. And before stuff gets crappy in the world, we get shot up into the sky like Star Trek, like getting beamed out of here. Like, really? Who else in the Bible got that? Who got raptured out of here before times got rough? And definitely not Enoch and Elijah. I mean, people might bring those up, but that is not a confirmation. Those were 2 very righteous people. And they were brought up for a reason, for a purpose. They weren't just brought up to be brought up, right? So, like, everybody went through it. Noah went through the flood. Lot was there for the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, the disciples got murdered. Like, the prophets got murdered. You know, he never raptured anybody out of here before times got rough. He always said endure till the end. Always. And that's what Noah did. That's what Lot did. That's what the disciples did. That's what the prophets did. Unto death, right? And we know for a fact in Revelation that there are believers, true believers, saints that get martyred in the end times, that get killed. So, I mean, sorry, but this idea, like, I would love to be wrong about this. I would be so thrilled to be wrong about this. I'd love to get raptured out of here before stuff gets wrong. However, an objective search of the scriptures, there's no way you can say that that's happening. There's just no way. That's why it's much better to prepare your heart for trials and tribulations, and the fact that some of us might not make it out of here. Some of us might get gathered up and beheaded or thrown in prison or whatever. Like, same thing that happened to the disciples and the prophets. They were gathered up. They were thrown in prison. They were beheaded. Right? They didn't get raptured out of here. So we're like, this whole idea of dispensations, I know I've covered it in great detail in the past. I did a whole live stream with Leaving Churchianity on dispensations and how they're not biblical. But this whole, like, the mainstream believes that we're the lucky generation that doesn't have to do anything at all except believe. And now we get sent out of here before stuff gets rough. But they're all waiting for this rapture. It's not happening. A lot more in Revelation needs to play out before there's a regathering. And then that's what it is first. He regathers his people and brings them out. And I believe it'll be a picture and a shadow of the first Exodus. What has been done is what will be done again. So if we are called out into the wilderness, if he gathers us after stuff goes sideways, after the plagues come down on the world, because that's when he gathered his people in the first Exodus. The plagues came down. They had to endure the plagues, but they were spared from them. Right? And then they were gathered up and sent towards the promised land. Why wouldn't that happen again? In fact, that's what a lot of scripture alludes to. So I want us to think about this. If we are the generation that does get called back into the wilderness for the second Exodus, so that we don't grumble like they did. Because it's going to be rough. Like, think about it. They were leaving comforts and amenities. Right? Yeah, they were slaves. They might even, some of them might have gotten whipped and beaten, right? But as a whole, they had jobs, they had houses, they had entertainment, they had the ability to go to the market and get food, right? Sell the same stuff we have. Like, we're slaves. Right? It doesn't matter what nation you live in right now. We're slaves. Like, the people at the top of the pyramid play by different rules than us. And it's just a fact. Like, we're free-range slaves, right? You can't do what you want on in this world, right? Unless you become lawless, and well, that doesn't work out well. So, anyways, like, we have amenities here. We have jobs, we have houses, we have comfort, we have entertainment, we have the ability to go get whatever food our heart desires right now. And if we're called into the wilderness, it's going to be the same thing that they're going through right here. We're not going to have those things anymore. Right? We'll be lucky to have manna. We'll be lucky to have a trailer or a van to sleep in. We'll be lucky to have those things, right? So I just hope we can all learn from this. And if we are called into the wilderness again, we don't grumble like they did. We don't want to go back to the U.S. We don't want to go back to Babylon. We don't want to go back to Egypt. We don't want to go back to Rome. That we're willing to endure until we're in the promised land, because again, the feast days tell us the cycle of what's going to happen. And I believe everything is going to happen again on a Feast of Trump, or sorry, not Feast of Trump. It's just on the feast days in general, which is why I personally have a high watch for next Passover. I don't believe, the real irony is, with all the lies and manipulation and all the like Project Bluebeam stuff they could make it look like a large scale event happened, like something crazy happened and you were left behind. Like I could totally believe that. But again, in the scriptures, the people that are gathered up first are the sinners and lawbreakers, and they're cast into the fiery furnace. So if they get raptured out of here and you're left behind, it's a good thing that you and I got left behind, because they are not going to the kingdom. So, but I could see how they could use something like that somehow, manipulate the people or deceive them in some way. Remember, there's a great delusion and there's a lot of manipulation that goes on in the end times. There's a lot of manipulation just right now in general. So I wouldn't doubt that they'd try to do something like that and make true believers feel like they got left behind and start doubting their faith. I wouldn't doubt that at all. But I have a personal high watch for next Passover. I'm planning to actually go somewhere, be around believers, and if something happens, I would not be shocked if it was on or near a Passover, right? And then it talks about plagues happening. Again, this is my opinion here. So I'm putting up the opinion flag. I could be wrong, but Yeshua talks about the end times, and he's like, pray that your flight may not take place in winter or Sabbath, right? So that means it's probably going to happen in winter and on a Sabbath, when stuff really goes down. Now, I could see there being plagues that come down on in the winter, right? Something happens between fall and spring, and stuff goes super sideways. Plagues start coming down, and then after plagues coming up on a Passover, I could see a regathering. That's just, like I said, my opinion. But if he's going to regather people, I would imagine it would be on a Passover and not during the fall feasts. Like, I think when he comes back, it could be on a Feast of Trumpets. It makes sense, but I don't know the exact time frame of that. And like I said, I don't have it all worked out, but I don't believe there's a rapture coming in the next few days. And like, I've seen thousands of people talking about it online, like, woo, rapture coming. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. But anyways, overall, right, it's less a need for us to concern ourselves about the timeline. Like, I'm quite certain that Yah will make it known to his people who are called by his name and who will be spared. I'm pretty sure he'll make it known to them what's going to happen and when they need to be ready. He did before. Why wouldn't he do it again? So I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know if you're all going to get dreams or see a giant pillar of cloud and fire to follow. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like. But he made it known to his people before. He'll make it known to his people again. So just keep your head in the book. Have your faith, and don't worry about the timeline of the end. I'm not saying don't think about it and don't try to figure it out. Obviously, I am trying to, but I'm just saying don't invest as much into that as trying to study the scriptures and apply them to your life, because we need to be the spiritual Goshen, right? Goshen, where in the Exodus they went to be spared from the plagues. It means to draw near. So they were drawing near to the Most High to be spared from the plagues. And that's what we need to do, draw near to him. And we draw near to him through his word and through applying it to our life. So just don't be like that first generation, and know that it's a blessing if you get called out. And yes, we're going to have to rough it, and it'll be tough for a while, but it ain't going to be forever. I'm pretty convinced that if they didn't act the way they acted, it wouldn't have been 40 years. Now, obviously, everything had to happen for a reason, and maybe all of this happened just for the end times generation to figure it out and do it right. I don't know. But if they didn't grumble and act the way they acted and want to go back to Egypt, I don't think they would have been out there for 40 years. Because he said, because of all this, because of your wickedness, like, I'm letting this wicked generation pass before you can come into the land, right? So that he didn't say that right away. That was after many, many, many wickeds that they did. So anyways, just remember, if you're called out, it's going to be hard. We're not going to have amenities. We're not going to have the desires of our heart for food or comfort. But he said in the first Exodus, he called them out to test them in the wilderness to see what's in their heart. So if that happens to us, we need to try and not make the same mistake. So just keep that in your mind and plan more about acting the right way in the second Exodus than when it is. All right. All right. I need to blow my nose. All that smoke and dust and stuff got all up in my nose. All right. Verse 6. And Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh from those who had closely inspected the land tore their garments. And they spoke to the whole assembly of the sons of Israel, saying, the land that we examine is very exceedingly good. If the Most High chooses us, he will lead us into the land and will give it to us, a land that is flowing with milk and honey. But do not rebel against the Most High, and you yourselves do not fear the people of the land, because they are something to be devoured by us. For indeed, the time of success and prosperity has removed from them, and Yahuwah is with us. Do not fear them. That's another thing to remember. If he calls us out by the power of his hand and we're actually witnessing miracles, right? Like if you're seeing a pillar of fire to guide you by night and a pillar of cloud to guide you by day, and if trees are sprouting up out of nowhere to give you shade, and land is flowing, or water flowing from rocks, and a path in oceans and lakes and rivers is getting opened up for you, you probably don't need to worry if the Most High is going to send you into war. You know what I mean? And we're humans. Like, we have fallen human nature, right? We get it. We're fearful. But if you're witnessing those miracles, you probably know that the creator of the world's on your side. And if the creator of the world's on your side, you'll probably be okay, even if it looks bleak, So if you get to see miracles in your lifetime, and I mean like Exodus style miracles, because I'm not saying that miracles don't happen every day, because they do, but I'm talking about like Exodus style miracles. If he calls you out and you're seeing this stuff, he's with you. You don't need to fear if he's like, go destroy that nation, and there's like 10 of you, like something will happen. I don't know what'll happen, but there's no need to fear. So, again, good advice to think about if we're that generation, if we start seeing those miracles. Do not fear them, verse 10. Oh, sorry, Meltdown. We're in Numbers 14, verse 10. I'm reading out of the Lexham Septuagint. But you can follow along in any translation. And all the congregation said that they should stone them. But the glory of Yahuwah appeared in a cloud on the tent of testimony to all the sons of Israel. And the Most High said to Moses, how long will this people provoke me? And how long will they not trust in me by the means of all the signs that I performed among them? See, there it is again. He's like, the Most High's like, dude, really? You guys are still grumbling? You think, like, what did I just show you? What have you seen since you've been out here, right? Like, why are you doubting? Right? So they were doubting. They didn't have like faith in him, which is just mind-boggling to me, because they got to see stuff that we only dream about seeing. Like, I would love to see the ocean open up in front of me. I would like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure it would terrify me, but I would love to hear the Most High speaking out of a cloud of fire in the sky. Like, I would love to hear him speak. I'm sure I would shudder. I'd be like, but he's there. He's with you. And it's just like, in that regard, I would love to witness this stuff. I would feel so blessed and chosen that I was one of the people that he wanted, that he called out. Even if I was the least out of all of them, I would be there and I would be witnessing things that nobody has ever seen before. And it's just like, that would be amazing. Like, and it just blows my mind, because I'm like, they got to see it. They got to witness it. And they were still just like, yeah, cool. Let's go back to Egypt. And I'm like, dude, what? Like, it blows my mind. And I'm just outside looking in. I'm just reading the words, right? And the Most High is speaking, and he's like, how on earth are you doubting me? Seriously, people? Really? Like, no wonder he gets so mad at them constantly. They're just acting in a way that you just shouldn't act if you got to witness this stuff. Like food is falling from the sky for them. And they're like, man, let's go back to Egypt. Like, like, what? I'm sorry. Like, I don't mean to like, poke at them or degrade them. We might have been the same way if we were back. I don't know how. Like, really, I don't know how. I have to imagine it wasn't like all of them, but at some point they all failed the test, which is why only their children got to go into the land. Right? So I don't know. I don't know why they acted that way, and I'm trying not to think I'm not trying to be prideful about it. Like, I would have acted better. Maybe it's because I have more information now than they did. I don't know, but how could you see that stuff and then complain and doubt? It's just like, come on, man. Like, you got prophecy fulfilled for you. Like, if you read the pre-Bible stuff in the Apocrypha, like the Testament of 12 Patriarchs, like, though that was written and handed down from the time that the patriarchs were alive, like Joseph and Naphtali and Judah, right? And they had that for about 400 years, right? And then that prophecy started coming true, and then they saw miracles, and like terrifying ones and amazing ones, and then they still grumbled. I don't get it. I don't know why. I would love to witness that. And I like to think that if I witnessed that, I wouldn't be doubting him. I wouldn't be doubting his hand, and I certainly wouldn't talk back. I would not. Well, like, I would sew my mouth shut if I had any inclination to talk back, because goodness gracious, if you see that, I do not want to speak against the Most High ever. And they were like just so like brazenly doing it. No wonder he didn't let them into the land, so we really need to not act that way if we are put into a similar situation as them, which is likely to happen, very likely to happen if we are the end times generation. And if you are called out. So anyways, let's keep going. Verse 12. And I will strike them with death, and I will destroy them. And I will also make you and the house of your fathers into a great nation, exceedingly more numerous than this people. And Moses said to the Most High, and Egypt will hear, for you brought up this people by your power from among them. But also all those dwelling in the land have heard that you yourself are the Most High among this people, who appears to them eyes to eyes, O Yahuwah, and your cloud is settled on them in a pillar of cloud, went along in front of them during the day, and a pillar of fire during the night. That's what I'm talking about there. And if you wipe out this people as if they were as single persons, then the nations, the ones who have heard your name, will say, saying, since Yah was not able to lead this people into the land that he swore to them, he destroyed them in the wilderness. And now let your strength be exalted, O Yahuwah, the way you said, saying, the Most High, long-suffering and full of mercy and truth, one who forgives transgression and injustice and sin, but by purification he does not acquit the guilty. And he visited the sin of the fathers and the children up to the third and fourth generations. Real quick on that front. So this is exactly why the Most High chose Moses. If it was just the heart of Moses. He was a very, very much, no wonder he was the picture and the shadow of Yeshua to come. That's exactly what he was. He was a foreshadow for Yeshua, right? And the heart of Yeshua towards the people. And that's why Moses was chosen. And that's why you shouldn't disrespect Moses as a believer of the Bible, which is what a lot of Christianity does. And I cannot figure out why. Moses was a good guy. Very, very good guy. And that is exactly why he was chosen. Because he might have been the only person that was alive on earth who would have interceded for a wicked people that didn't deserve it. Think about Yeshua. He is the only person that ever lived that would intercede for wicked people that didn't deserve it. Right? So that's why they needed Moses. And that's why we need Yeshua. We are wicked people who do not deserve it. Right? Even with all the information we have, even with trying to get our heart postures aligned, we are still a wicked, grumbling, evil people by nature, right? Our hearts, our minds are constantly trying to point us to sin and to wrongdoing, and we let it, right? We let it control us. And the only way anyone like that will ever enter into the kingdom is because of people like Yeshua and Moses. So, anyways, that's, I don't know if you guys saw one of the videos I just recently did, but we need Yeshua. I've seen Torah observant people go too far and say, well, basically I can save myself. I know all I need to do is keep the commandments. And yes, you do. And in a way that can save or condemn you. However, there's much more to it than that. That's just one aspect of it. We need Yeshua. You cannot reject Yeshua and think you're getting in because you're keeping the Sabbath. No. I have seen Torah observers reject Yeshua, which I guess then really doesn't make you a Torah observer in my mind. But I don't know why. I don't know how you could really be examining this book and not see Yeshua in every single aspect of it, because I can. I can see him here in the Exodus. I can see him being the angel of the Most High that was directly speaking to Moses. I can see him being the mouthpiece for Yah in the wilderness. He's there. And I can see him in Isaiah. I can see him in Ezekiel. I can see him in Proverbs. So he's there, right? And the covenant, I'm convinced the covenant was between Israel and him. And they were a wicked, adulterous people against their Messiah before they realized it was their Messiah. Right? So, and we can get into, interpretation of all that all day long. But that's where I'm at. I believe the covenant was made with Yeshua. The covenant was with the finger of God. Right? That's Yeshua. And that Yeshua was the mouthpiece for the Most High. And it was his laws, and he was walking them out on this earth. And he chose the people as his inheritance. And they went against him. And he's the one that sent them away with a certificate of divorce. And that is exactly why he had to die for the new covenant. The renewed covenant, rather. Because if those prophecies, if those punishments hadn't have gotten fulfilled, then nobody could come into the renewed covenant. No one. Not Jews. It doesn't matter your skin color, your bloodline. Nobody can get in without Yeshua fulfilling the punishments for that covenant that was between him and the people. Right. So, and I've done videos about this in the past. They're in my Messiah playlist. You know, Messiah fulfills the law of jealousy. Messiah fulfills the law of divorce. Messiah fulfills the law of the priest's daughter. Those ones. I've done videos about those things. And Yeshua's the only one that could fulfill those. And that means he was involved in this covenant right here in the Bible. Wait until Judgment Day, when all the people that were believers of Yeshua were utterly spitting on this covenant in the Bible and doing the exact same stuff that made Yeshua kick them out of the covenant. How horrible it will feel to understand how vastly deceived and how wicked you've been, and how you were going against the Messiah with your heart and with your mind the whole time you claimed to believe and love him and worship. It's going to be a bad day. It's going to be a really bad day. And people making fun of the Sabbath, which is his day. People making fun of the feast days, which are his days. People making fun of the dietary laws that he gave us. This is why he's the Word. He's the Word made flesh. Right? And again, make no mistake, there is still a Father and there's still a Son, but the Son has been far more involved throughout biblical history than people realize. He was there at the foundation of the earth. Right? He talks about this in Proverbs. So, again, if you disagree with me on that, that's fine. I understand why it took me a long time to get to where I'm at with my beliefs and trying to piece this all together in a way where it all works and doesn't contradict itself. And that takes time. And I'm not saying I have it all figured out. I'm not saying I'm completely right, but that's where I am. And if that's not where you are, that's fine. Right? We can still be friends. We can still study together. Right? You just have a different understanding at your current level of knowledge, and that's okay. And again, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying, when I see it this way, I don't see anything that isn't checkmarked. I don't see anything that contradicts itself. And a lot more of the New Testament makes sense to me when you understand how much the Son is in the Old Testament. Right? And again, we know from Yeshua's own mouth that there is a Father and that they're his laws, right? But Yeshua is that I don't know. I don't even really know how to say it. The embodiment of the laws of the Father placed into a human being. He's the embodiment of all the law that he was teaching to us. Why wouldn't it be him teaching the laws to Moses? They're his laws. It is him. The Father made him that way. Made him as the Word. He is the Word, the law made flesh. Why wouldn't he be the one teaching the laws to Moses? And he taught the laws for his entire ministry on earth. And it says in the Old Testament, in the prophecies about the millennial reign, that the Word and the law will reign forth from the Messiah, from Mount Zion, for the whole world. Like, if you don't like Torah, you're not going to like the millennial reign very much, because that's what the millennial reign will be. Everybody living by Torah. No arguments, no fighting about interpretation, no argument. It'll be settled. It'll be done, and you'll be living by it. And that sounds amazing to me, because the Torah is righteous and holy and good. Right? And I wish I could live to the standard that is expected of us, and it's just, and don't make, that might have come out wrong, but we're expected to be perfect in the law, right? And it is possible to be perfect in the law on this earth. We have examples of it. It says it's possible. It tells us about people who did it. But I'm not talking about perfect in this world. I mean the standard expected by the millennial reign, when there's no more question, when everything is worked out, when the law is literally in our heart and in our mind, and we know it and we're living by it and observing it. I want to live to that standard of Torah, and it just sometimes seems so impossible on this earth, right? We're always at each other's necks about calendars and which hours to observe this, and does this count as breaking this law? Does this, there's too much gray area, and we aren't working with each other enough, So in this world, in this current state, all we can do is practice our righteousness, practice walking by it. We can't fulfill it like I wish we could fulfill it, like we will fulfill it when Yeshua is reigning in the millennial reign. So I wish we could all live to that standard, because it's good, right? And I don't want to drop the ball anymore. I wish I never did in the first place, but here we are, and we still have stuff that we have to struggle with, and it sucks. But do your best. Forget the rest, and it'll all be settled for us. And I hope I'm there, and I look forward to a time where the world is living by Torah, because it's gonna be good. It's gonna be really, really good. Anyways, let's get back into it. Verse 19. Oh, one more thing, actually. I got off on my little tangent there, as I do. Sorry. When it says that you visit the sin of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generations, I always wondered about this, because there's interpretations of this. There's multiple that I've heard. One of the more recent ones I've heard, I found extremely fascinating. And I talked a little bit about it in previous study not too long ago. But Rob Skiba, if you guys have heard about him, he's on YouTube. He passed away. But he talked about the Nephilim and genetics, like how there were Nephilim post-flood. And he was talking about genetically, how this could work, how the sins of the father could pass down to the third and the fourth generation. And I found it an extremely, extremely interesting interpretation of this that I hadn't heard before. Because, it does kind of stink. Because if you think about it, like, why is it my fault that my great-great-grandfather, who I've never met, did something terrible, and now it's affecting me? Well, like, why does that have to happen? And then think about Adam, right? And what he did. Well, that one act of one man screwed all of us, So that passed down to all his children, all of it, all of the descendants of all his children. And it kind of stinks, not that we would do any better if we were in their shoes, because I'm sure we wouldn't. But it does kind of stink, right? And I've thought about this a lot, like why the sins might pass down. Rob Skiba had, go watch some of his videos about the Nephilim and like the post-flood Nephilim. And he talks about this. And basically he says, because if you look at genetics, and I'll give you like a brief overview of this. If you modify something's genes, then you can't undo it in the future. And that's true of everything. If you do it with a tree, if you do it with a vegetable, if you do it with an animal, if you do it with a human, like if you alter your DNA, your genetics, that will pass down to your children. Which is why all this stuff is really, really bad, because that literally changed your DNA, right? Like, so, and that'll pass down, that'll continue on your line. But he talks about this theory about how Noah and his sons were genetically pure. They didn't have any Nephilim DNA, but the daughters I guess they were Noah's daughters, technically, his daughter-in-laws that his sons married, would have had Nephilim genetics in them passed down, right? And it talks about in the Torah how a father can redeem his house, right? And he does that through righteousness, through walking the way. And if you do that, right, you could pass that genetically on so that the Nephilim DNA didn't take over. And I'm doing a disservice to how he described it. He did a wonderful job laying it out. There's one video on YouTube specifically, I can't remember. It's like 20 minutes long. It's not super long. But it's about the post-flood Nephilim. And he talks about this. And I found it extremely fascinating and plausible. So it makes sense that our acts as a believer, how we live our life, could have a genetic impact on our children that could be passed down. This is why generational curses, either way, even if it's not genetically, we know generational curses are real. Like, there's a fact. You can't get around that. And you gotta, if you haven't before, I highly suggest you praying about that a lot and making the buck stop at you so that it doesn't pass on to your family. Like, pray away these generational curses. I pray that they stop here right now, that they don't affect my children. I've prayed that over my children many times, and I will continue to do so because I don't want any generational curses that I have going down to them, because both me and my wife have people in our line that were likely doing not great stuff. I have Masons in my line of people in my family, and my wife has witches in her line of her family. Like, obviously not people we knew or like hung out with, but we know that we have descendants that were doing that stuff in our direct line. So, and that's stuff that not good. So you need to pray away that stuff and make the buck stop with you so that it doesn't pass on to your line, and you can redeem your household in that way, right? You can stop that curse from moving forward because of your righteousness over your household. So anyways, if you're curious about any of that, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll give you as much information as I can. But if you haven't prayed about that, pray about it. All right. Also, go watch that video from Rob Skiba because it's super duper interesting. And it, like I said, that's an opinion from him as well. It's not like you can't. There might be a way to prove it, but we aren't going to be able to prove it. You know what I mean? It's just a plausible explanation for something like this. It could be a plausible explanation for it. So just keep that in mind. It may not work that way, but it would make sense to me if it did work that way somehow. We already know that Yah's DNA or Yah's mark is on our DNA. And I'm not even just talking about like the mark you get from keeping his commandments as we're told in the Torah. I'm talking about like his mark is on our DNA. A very interesting article about our actual DNA sequences and why wouldn't he build himself into our DNA, right? Like made in his image. So really, really cool. There's an article about that. I can try to find it and send you guys a link if you want to see it. I'll try and find that. But very, very cool. He is literally in our DNA. So if we change it, like it's not good. We're changing ourselves into not his creation, not his image, and we don't want to do that. So try to avoid as much as that DNA altering stuff as possible. And like, again, I don't know how far it goes, right? I do know I have some people that follow me that took the vaccine. And I don't know. I truthfully, I do not know what implications that can, I know it's not healthy for you. I know that much. And I don't know if I don't know how far. I don't have answers for that. But I know that they're even changing like DNA of our food and stuff. So it might not be escapable. Like, me eating a tomato from the store might be just as bad as, somebody that took this now. I don't know that for certain. I honestly can't know, but I've heard they're doing some very, very weird stuff with our food. And again, you are what you eat. So why wouldn't Satan try to corrupt us through our food as well? And try to get us from every day. And maybe this is why, it talks about in the Bible how if he didn't shorten the time, that no human flesh would be saved. There's a lot of reasons why that could be true. And maybe that's one of them. Like it would be unescapable at some point where just they've corrupted everything. They've corrupted the dirt of the field, the air of the sky, the water, and no matter what you eat or what you do, you might be unescapable through, getting your DNA altered because of everything that he's trying to do. I don't know. But pray about it. And if you took that thing, pray about it a lot as well. I'd repent from that and I would take like cleanses, like heavy metal cleanses and stuff like that. I've heard many people talk about how you can cleanse yourself from those things. So pray about that, and then I'm getting a just a second. What, buddy? What's wrong? What's wrong? You okay? You want to sit? Yeah. Do you want to come say hi to everybody? Come here. Come say hi. You having a rough afternoon? I'm sorry, buddy. Here. Come up, say hi to everybody. Look, there's Dada, and there's Mr. Man. And look, Colton's waving at you. I'm sorry, buddy. Having a rough time. Do you want a treat? Yeah, do you want a cookie? Yeah, cookies fix everything, huh?
Dad, a bean.
Yeah, Daddy's bean. That's our doggy.
Hey, Daddy.
Daisy, yeah.
Daisy.
We love Daisy, huh? We love Daisy.
Daddy.
Hey, do you want a cookie?
No, Daddy.
You don't want a cookie? Do you want some chocolate chips?
No, chip.
No chip? Okay. Do you want a sip of Dada's drink?
Yep.
Okay. Do you feel better now? Do you feel better? Yeah. Can Dada do a study?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, buddy. Mwah. Good boy. All right. Sorry, guys. Had a little dad duty. Somebody was upset. Like I've told you guys before, I'm gonna be so sad when it's like a cookie or a kiss or a sip of your drink doesn't fix the problem. It's really cute. Kids are cute. After having them, I understand why the Bible talks so highly about them. Hey, no, don't turn that on. That's gonna be really hot. Thank you. He turned on the heater. Not a good day for the heater. All right, you guys. Let me try. You are not going to let me do this, are you? No. Okay, 1 second. I got to try to appease him out of the office so that I can do the study. Do you want to say hi too? Oh. Jab your knee into my stomach. Oh, you want to come up too?
Yeah.
Both of you need to come up? Okay, all right. Can you say hi?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
Look, everyone's saying hi back to you. You guys can't read yet, but they're saying hi. Oh, no, don't touch that. No, don't touch it. All right, let's go get treats. Treats. All right, I'll be right back. I'm sorry, you guys. Dad duty. What can you do? All right, you guys. Luckily, we're still at the point in time where a cookie fixes most everything. So, why wouldn't it? Cookies are awesome. All right, you guys. Let's try to keep reading. I lost my place. Third and fourth generation. Verse 19. Forgive the sins of this people based on your great mercy, just as you were merciful to them since they came from Egypt until right now. And so the Most High said to Moses, I am being merciful to them based on your plea. But as I myself live, and as my name also lives, the glory of the Most High will fill all the earth. For all the men who have seen my glory and the signs that I perform in Egypt and in the wilderness, and they have put me to the test this 10th time, and have not obeyed my voice. 10 times. 10. Brutal. If indeed they will not see the land that I swore to their fathers, but rather their children who are with me here, who are with me here, who do not know good or evil, every inexperienced young person, to them I will give the land. And all those who are provoking me will not see it, but my servant Caleb, because there was a different spirit in him, and he followed me closely. I will bring him into the land into which he entered, and his seed will inherit it. But Amalek and the Canaanites dwell in the valleys. Interesting also that Nephilim talk. It talks about Amalek and the Canaanites and how they were likely Nephilim. And we just saw in chapter, 12, when they went and spied out the giants. This is likely likely this whole area is occupied by Nephilim, right? Which makes sense why, he says when you go in and take over this land, like destroy everything. Just utterly annihilate the land because they are corrupting it like they did pre-flood, because he says even kill the animals, right? And why would you kill the animals? Because maybe they're doing stuff to the animals that makes them not animals anymore, and all this stuff people poke at, even Christians poke at this stuff all the time, and they're like, well, this is wicked, this is evil, and it's like, dude, you don't know what's going on, you weren't there, right? But he left us enough information where if you really seek it out, you can pretty easily gather that he's not sending them in to wipe out a bunch of super kind, nice, people that don't deserve it. He's the Most High. He's the Creator. He knows everything. He knows things that we could possibly never understand. Why are you talking back about his judgments? Why are you, and I'll admit, I don't understand all the judgments in here. I don't. However, I'm not going to talk against them. I'm not going to blaspheme against his judgments in my ignorance without knowing the information, because there's a lot of stuff we don't know. He didn't give us everything. He gave us enough. So I'm just saying, don't sit back there and criticize his judgments when, one, he's the Most High and you are not. And two, just if you really truly believe what the book says, he's righteous, holy, and just. He's not sending them in to utterly annihilate like a bunch of really nice, undeserving people. They obviously deserve it for some reason. And if Rob Skiba's right, then this was a valley full of Nephilim giants, of demon hybrids, people that let the demons take them over. So sounds like something that should get wiped out to me. I'm just saying. But again, even if it wasn't when we know there were giants there, we just read about it. We know for fact, zero question, there were giants there. There were post-flood Nephilim there. Now, I don't know if they were all giants, doesn't say. But either way, the giants were not good. They weren't supposed to be here. They weren't supposed to be there. Right? So anyways, I'm just saying, Yah does nothing without a purpose, and just because you and I don't understand it does not give us the right to criticize it. Right? That's a bad thing to do. And especially with what we're just reading about how they kept putting him to the test, they kept not placing their faith and trust in him. We don't want to be doing the same thing. So anyways, verse 25. But Amalek and the Canaanites dwell in the valleys, so tomorrow you yourselves turn around and move out into the wilderness area by way of the Red Sea. And the Most High spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, how long will I endure this wicked assembly? They themselves are murmuring against me, even the murmuring of the sons of Israel, which they have murmured concerning you, I have heard. Not a good boat to be in. We need to not do that if we're called into a second Exodus. Say to them, as I myself live, says Yahuwah, if indeed you have spoken into my ears like this, so I will deal with you. In the wilderness, your corpses will fall, even the entire census numbering for you, which was likely 1 million people. We know for a fact that there were at least 500,000 men, right? And they had wives, they had kids. I don't know if every one of them was married or not, but again, if 500,000 men have wife and kids, do the math. Very likely over 1 million people there. Indeed, those of you who were recorded from 20 years and over, the ones who murmured against me, cursed if you will go into the land on which I stretch out my hand to settle you on it, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun, and the children which you said would be a spoil. I will lead them into the land, and they will inherit the land that you yourselves have withdrawn from. And your corpses will fall in this wilderness, but your sons will feed in the wilderness for 40 years, and they will pay for your faithlessness until your corpses are consumed in the wilderness. Okay, right here. I'm actually real quick. I am going to make a note of this because I don't have this one. I like to compile lists of places for certain things in Scripture. And this is one that I'm going to add to my list right here. We are in Numbers 14, verse 33. Numbers 14, verse 33. And this is one of many times that it directly correlates faithlessness with disobedience. Directly. And we see this all over. Just read one of them in Psalms, the Psalm study that I aired on YouTube last night. Right? Another one right there. It says so many times it directly correlates your faith to your obedience, which again shouldn't be a hard stretch. Like, read James chapter 2. He explains it very, very well in that chapter. Your faith is supposed to accompany obedience. It leads to obedience, right? But if you don't obey, it calls you faithless all throughout the Bible. So I don't understand how all these people can claim to believe what the Bible says and believe in the Elohim of the Bible and the Messiah and say, "Oh, I have faith, but I don't gotta keep those commandments." And it's like, well, the Bible says if you don't keep those commandments, then you're faithless. So it's as good as, oh goodness. I just got a warning. Are you kidding me? Am I still live streaming? Am I still here? Oh my goodness. You guys, look, this just popped up. Am I still here? Okay, you guys can still see me. Look, this just popped up. This behavior is not in line with our policies and may result in, well, I don't care about gifting suspension. I don't care about that at all, but I just got another warning. This is insane, you guys. I'm telling you. They're after me right now, and I don't even know why. I'm not even, doing anything that crazy. But this might be a second strike on my account. It might very well. Because I just told you guys about that one I got on my other video, and they're refusing to answer my appeal. After 3 weeks, they just says reviewing. And now this? What was I doing? What was I doing? Because I'm talking about faithlessness and obedience? Wow. Times are getting rough. The truth is going to get suppressed. I mean, biblical truth is going to get super hidden right before stuff kicks into high gear for the end times. Just like in Genesis, right? The whole world heard the truth, and then he said, all right, you guys have heard, you're done. You're done hearing. The gates are getting closed. That happened in the time of Noah. Then it happened in Genesis with Joshua. They had 7 years of feasting, of gathering, of hearing the truth, and then the gates were shut, right? Then came the famine. And you see that happening a lot of times where Yah says, this is coming, and you get a time. You get a time to hear, you get a time to repent, and if you don't, then when I close the door, it's done. You're not getting in. And I think we're getting to that period of time in the end times. Because think about the last-ish 5, 6, 7 years, right? I started my TikTok, my first one, I think it was about 5 years ago. 5 years ago. It was around 2020, I believe, when all that was going down. And then that first account got banned. And then I started my second one. But I started in, I believe it was around 2020, so about 5 years ago-ish. And nobody was talking about Torah. I told you guys, I didn't even know what it was called when I woke up to the truth. I was like, is there a name for this? And there were like a handful of other people that I could find preaching it. And that's why I felt really called to start my TikTok and YouTube, because there were so few people talking about it. There was almost nobody, right? And I was like, I got to get in this fight. I got to spread the truth, right? And y'all drew me to that, and y'all made a way for it to be heard. Like, you know, I don't try to grow anything. I don't put up videos to create controversy, to try and get likes and views. I've never done that, not intentionally anyways. And y'all made it grow, right? I didn't get 80,000 followers my own. He did all of that. Right now it doesn't matter because I'm shadow banned, and now who hears. But it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter because now so many people have been woken up. There are countless people preaching the truth now. Countless people teaching. I see a new face every day pop up on my TikTok preaching the truth. And that is from Yah, right? But 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there was almost nobody. There was like 3 or 4 ministries on YouTube, you know, and then there was like almost the same amount on TikTok. And I don't do Facebook or Instagram, so I don't know on those ones, but I don't imagine it was a lot. And nobody in the mainstream was talking about it. Nobody. It wasn't like, there weren't like the Joel Osteens of the world talking about it, or the people that have 1 million people preaching Bible stuff. All the mainstream, like, they weren't talking about it. But now they've been forced to address it. They've been forced to say, this is happening. And now they're all trying to stand in the way, right? Which is exactly what the Bible says not to do, right? It says it in Acts, right? Like, hey, if this is from Yah, you don't want to be found opposing it, right? So they're not even taking biblical advice, not a shocker. But either way, there weren't that many people doing it. And now it's spread like wildfire. And it's amazing to see from my perspective being, I don't want to say one of the first ones doing it, because I wasn't, you know, and I know there were people walking Torah way before me, but I was one of the first ones, at least on TikTok, to start spreading the truth through this type of forum. And now, don't even need me. People are, like I said, like wildfire. So, in that regard, that's of Yah. That is absolutely of Yah. And he is making people hear the truth before the end. He's making the whole world hear the truth before the end. And TikTok has spread to every corner of the world. I'm sure the other platforms have too, but I know specifically on TikTok, I have people from all over the world that I've talked to on this app about Torah. I have people from South Africa, North Africa, people from the Middle East, people from every corner of Europe, people from Mexico and South America, people from China. I have literally spoken to people on just about every corner of the earth about Torah, right? And I'm just one person, and now there's thousands and thousands of them out there preaching the truth. And Yah said the whole world was going to know before the end. So I think that's him fulfilling yet another prophecy and bringing his truth to the world and making everybody hear it. But on the flip side of that, once everybody's heard, and the gates are going to get closed. And the end times are going to start kicking into high gear, and then your chance to get on the boat are gone. I think that's happening. I think the gates of knowledge and wisdom are about to be closed, and that's why they're trying to censor us and shadow ban us. But there's so many of us now that they can't keep the world from hearing, right? So I think that's what's going on. That's my opinion of the situation. But this whatever you want to call it, this movement, this awakening, whatever, it's from Yah. It is from the Most High. Undoubtedly, undeniably, he woke people up, and he has used so many of us to plant seeds all over the world, and he let those seeds grow. Now, albeit I've seen some of those seeds go back to the ways of the world, I've seen some of those seeds turn to dangerous doctrines, but the fact remains that the truth has spread like wildfire over even just the past 5 years that I've been on TikTok. So, again, I think we're getting real close to the end, you guys, and they're going to try to silence us. Man, I don't know. They might even come after some of us. Like, obviously, I receive persecution all the time from this, but it's words. Words will never hurt me, right? But they might start coming after us with sticks and stones one of these days soon. And that's what it talks about happening in the fifth seal. So some of us may be delivered up into persecution, into prison, into death when stuff really kicks into high gear. Not looking forward to that. But, Yah's will be done. I hope I'm strong enough to conquer until the end, no matter what path he puts me on. But I think the gates of knowledge are about to close, and this kind of stuff is going to be a lot more frequent, which stinks. And I hope I'm going to check when I get off, but that might be a second strike on my account. Just talking about that at the beginning of this live stream. And if that's the second strike, then anything I do to go against them where they catch wind of it, they could delete this account. So if I'm gone off of TikTok and you can't find me, go over to YouTube. Like I said, the good news is I'm so small over there that I'm just fly under the radar because they're like, oh, this guy's not reaching anybody. Like I'll do a video and it'll get like 30, 40 views, So they're not concerned about 30, 40 people hearing the truth, but they are concerned about thousands. They are concerned about tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people hearing. And I think that's why I was shadow banned personally. I used to do videos, and on the regular, it would be 10, 20,000 people would see every single video I did. And now, I don't know. Raylene, I don't think so. My kids have come on the live stream a lot, and I've never gotten anything like that. Plus, like, you're not allowed to show your kids. Like, how many TikTok videos do people show their kids, So I'm just saying, I don't think that's it. But they'll use any reason they can. I don't know. Anyways, though, let's get back into our study before they decide to remove my live stream. All right, where was I at? Where was I at? Lost my place. Other people go to seek out the land. Does anyone have it marked? I wish Tiffany was still here. She was really good at that. We talked to them a lot. They're doing good, but she always kept track for me. Thank you guys. Thank you, Holly, Raylene. Appreciate it. Oh man, right when I get my bookmark there, I gotta blow my nose again. I don't really have allergies, but today that smoke and all the dust and the ash that was in the air got all up in my nose. Yeah, I got the timer. Do you want it? All right, 34. All right. Faithlessness. Yep, there we are. Okay. But your sons will feed in the wilderness for 40 years, and they will pay for your faithlessness until your corpses are consumed from the wilderness. Okay, so again, faithlessness and obedience directly correlated yet again. And we see that dozens and dozens of times. So anyways, verse 34. For a period of days equal to the time you inspected the land, 40 days, a day for each year, you will bear your sins for 40 years, and so you will experience my wrath, the wrath of my anger. Remember, like I was talking about before, it wouldn't have been 40 years for them if they didn't act this way, right? In fact, none of them got to go because of how they acted, but I don't think it would have been 40 years. It could have been a short amount of time if they showed their heart posture right. I would imagine just going off of the feast day cycle, right? The covenant is given on Shavuot, right? So we're talking like a couple of months after Passover. So they could have been brought out into the land and then given the covenant, and then they could have been brought into it. Like it could have been less than a year. Okay, it could have been like 6-8 months that they would have needed to be in the wilderness if it wasn't for their attitude. Now, again, I don't know for sure. I can't say that for sure, but I know for a fact, we just read it. The reason that they didn't get to go into the land and the reason that they were there for 40 years is because of how they were acting, because of their bad heart posture towards towards the Most High and towards being delivered from slavery. I understand true freedom is hard sometimes, but I don't want to be a slave. Like, who wants to be one? You know, and that's what they were, and that's what we are now. And I don't know. I still can't believe how they were acting. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. But I digress. Let's keep going. Verse 35. I, the Most High, have spoken. If I will not act accordingly with this wicked assembly who have gathered together against me in this wilderness, they will be utterly destroyed and they will die. Now the people whom Moses sent to seek out the land and afterwards came and muttered with respect to it, to the congregation, presenting discouraging words concerning the land. Now the people who had spoken despairingly with evil things concerning the land died by the plague before the Most High. But Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, lived from among those people who went to scout out the land. Again, we get another foreshadow for the Messiah here with Joshua, right? Because Moses ends up passing away, and then Joshua, which they have the same Hebrew name, Yeshua and Joshua. In Hebrew, their name is the exact same. So Jesus is Joshua, right? Yeshua is Joshua is Yeshua, right? And he's the one that brings the people into the land. So another foreshadow of things to come through Joshua. So we get a picture of the Messiah through Moses. We get a picture of the Messiah through the Levitical priesthood. We get a picture of the Messiah through Joshua. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know whoever could be a Torah observer, a true Torah observer, and ever reject our Messiah Yeshua. I don't understand how that's even possible. He is everywhere in this book, and it is undeniably obvious. So anyways, verse 39. And Moses spoke these words to all the sons of Israel, and the people mourned exceedingly. And so, rising up early in the morning, they went into the high regions of the mountain areas, saying, Look, we ourselves will go up on the place concerning which the Most High asserted that we sinned. And Moses said, Why are you yourselves going against the word of the Most High? It will not be successful for you. Do not go on up. For the Most High is not with you, and so you will fall before your enemies. Since the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there ahead of you, you will fall by the sword because of disobeying the Most High. Always comes back. That's another thing. I'll never understand how a Christian could ever actually read this Bible and come to the conclusion that, oh, those laws aren't for me. Oh, I don't need to do that. Oh, I'll get grafted in to the covenant for, for doing the same thing that got these people kicked out of it. Like, how does that make sense? This is why, I just don't get it. Like, I have argued for years with people that are on the mainstream doctrine train, and it never, ever makes sense. I'm like, dude, are you actually reading? Have you actually read the Bible? Like, how could you ever read it and then walk away thinking that I don't need to keep these laws. These laws aren't fruitful or profitable for me to keep. These laws aren't holy and righteous and good, and it will benefit my life if I do them willingly from a good heart posture. Like, I don't get it. I'll never get it. As long as I do ministry work, however long or short that may be, I will never get all the people that believe that. But, again, always circles back to disobeying the Most High, not keeping his commandments and doing your own thing, doing what's right in your own eyes. You have turned away, and so the Most High will not be among you. And so, being persistent and forceful, they went up to the high regions of the hill countries, but the ark of the covenant of the Most High and Moses did not move from the encampment. And so Amalek and the Canaanites who were living in the mountainous area came down and put them to flight and cut them down as far as Hormah. And they turned away towards the encampment. See the bad choices that they keep making? Like, in the first part of this chapter, they were like, we'll never be able to fight them. Like, we should just go back to Egypt. Like, our families are going to be spoils for them, and this is not good. Let's go back to Egypt. And then the Most High is like, okay, I'm sick of your grumbling. I'm sick of how you're acting. I'm punishing you for this. And now you don't get to go into the land. And then, after that, they're like, oh, no, we want to go into the land. We're going to do it ourselves. And then what happens? They get cut down. And like, it's just so, like, mind-blowingly dumb. Like, how... What is going through your head, right? And, like, again, I'd like to say that we'd be better, but I know we wouldn't. And looking at all the dumb choices and dumb things I've seen from mainstream ideologies, like, they would do the same stuff, right? Like, so they're clearly just doing what's right in their own eyes, and they're utterly at every turn going against the Most High. He punished them for going against him and they didn't want to go fight. And then when he says, now you don't get to go, they're like, no, we're going to go fight now. Like, it's frustrating to read. Like, it's frustrating to see them make these dumb mistakes. And you're just like, I sit here and I read this and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then it is what it is, and it keeps happening. Like, again, in the mainstream, people are making the same choices like this. I look at them and what they believe and what they teach, and it's the same thing. I'm like, what are you doing? How can you not see that you are preaching and doing the same stuff that these people are doing and how dumb that is? Like, it's like right in front of them. But that old prophecy, they have eyes but can't see, they have ears but can't hear, comes true yet again. So, I don't know. An interesting chapter for our Torah portion. Very interesting. And, like, frustrating. Quite frankly, just extremely frustrating. I cannot imagine how the Most High felt, but I can understand his anger. If I was, again, it's probably not good for us to try and think this way because there's just no way we possibly can. But if I was the Most High, or not even the Most High, if I was just like over these people, if these were my people and this is what they were doing, I would get wildly frustrated and angry with them also. Like, I again, the only reason this covenant ever remained is because of Moses and how humble and meek and kind he was. And that's why he was chosen, to be that for a wicked people. But I would want to destroy them. I would want to punish them. I would want to let them fall in the wilderness too. Like, look, just one chapter, look at how they were acting. They were acting like a lot of people you see acting on TV out there with this stuff. Just acting in stupid, frustrating ways, doing utterly dumb stuff that's not profitable, that's dangerous, that's evil and wicked. And they were doing the same stuff. And I don't know why so many believers can't learn from it. It's like they refuse to learn from the vastly wicked mistakes. There's a reason this was all recorded for us and preserved for us, so we can learn from it. And what do Christians do? Oh, that was just for them. I don't got to worry about any of that stuff. I'm not like them. No. I mean, I'm doing the same stuff they were doing, but I'm not like them. Gets me every time. All right. We're switching over to Matthew. I'll be reading out of the ESV now. If you guys would like to follow along, we're going to finish Matthew today. I have to get another drink. And blow my nose again, man. It really got up in there. And I was out there for like I said, like 30, 45 minutes, something like that. Trying to knock that fire down. It was, it got all up in my nose. I should have put a bandana or something on. But I'm getting a lot of nostril stuff because of it. It was cool though. Like I said, I got to feel like a firefighter again. It's been a long time since I have fought a fire. So I got to get out there with some country folk and fight fire today. So that was kind of fun. But I got some stuff going on. Let me get a drink real quick. Take like 3-minute break here, and then we're going to start back up in Matthew chapter 27. So 1 second. I'll be right back. Back when I was a firefighter, I was a smoker. So I was looking for years to smoke it. All right. Hey, you go for mommy. Stay with her. You go check it out for now. Oh, what were you doing? Was my son snuck in here? Did you guys see him? Was he up here messing with it? Might have seen his little hand sticking up.
It's frosting. Try it.
Well, it's good. He didn't shut off the live stream.
Come on, kids.
All right. Can you guys go, mommy?
Come on.
Ooh, you're gonna get some cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be good. We're making homemade cinnamon rolls. Well, I say we. My wife is making them.
Take it and crack.
Oh, you get some cream? Mmm, good. See, cinnamon rolls. Pfft, make everything better. The chair moved. Yeah, that was him. I don't know what it is. They love getting up on my desk and stealing my pens and messing with stuff up there. Kids, what are you going to do? Can you go with mommy? Hey, while I got you guys, if you could keep my wife in your prayers, she's been having like nonstop contractions, but
I'm pretty sure they're practice.
Yeah, they're really, really bad. Braxton
The last
Hicks.
24 hours.
Because we're not there yet. We still got a couple of weeks. I mean, we're in the safe zone, but
We've got 3.5 weeks.
been having some really bad Braxton Hicks contractions that are kicking her butt. So if you could keep my wife in your prayers too, I'll mention that at the end of the study again. But
Come on, kids. Come on.
all right, can you guys go with mommy? Sheppy, go with mommy. just a second. Oh.
Do you want to want this one?
Oh. Okay.
You want this one? Yeah. Then come here.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah.
All right. Finally wrangled the kids out of the office. All right. We are going to wrap up Matthew today. They are little firecrackers. Yeah. We're going to wrangle up. We're going to finish up Matthew today. And then for those of you that might have missed the last couple of studies, we're going to start Acts next week. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll still be in Numbers, but we're going to move into the book of Acts. So that was a request from my wife, and I'm inclined to oblige. She doesn't usually request. So anyways, looking forward to that. Acts is a very good book. A lot to learn from that one as well. And then after Acts, or once we start getting pretty close to the end, I'll probably ask you guys for your next suggestion of what you'd like to jump into. If you want to go back into the Tanakh, or if you want to stay in the New Testament. Either way, I'll ask you guys. So think about it over the next few weeks, what you might want to study line by line next. But we are going to do Acts right after this. So looking forward to that. All right. Matthew. Let's see here. Matthew chapter 27. When morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people took counsel against Yeshua to put him to death. And they bound him and led him away and delivered him over to Pilate the governor. Then, when Judas, his betrayer, saw that Yeshua was condemned, he changed his mind and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders, saying, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. They said, what is that to us? Right? So cold-hearted. They're like, yeah, whatever, we don't care. But this is actually prophesied in the Old Testament. I want to say it's in Nehemiah. I could be wrong. Let's keep reading. They said, what is that to us? See to it yourself. And throwing down the pieces of silver into the temple, he departed and he went and hanged himself. But the chief priest, taking the pieces of silver, said, it is not lawful to put them into the treasury, since it is blood money. Right? They should have never been involved in blood money in the first place. They're priests of God. They're priests of the Most High. And this is what Yeshua was constantly rebuking them about all throughout his entire ministry. They were doing shady, wicked stuff. They were using the power that Yah bestowed on them to do wickedness. And they're still doing it today. Right? And it's not just Orthodox Judaism. It's Christianity too. They're using power bestowed on them for wickedness, for self-gain. And again, he consistently preaches against this. When we were in Matthew chapter 23, he's talking about how they're gigantic hypocrites and how they preach but don't practice. This is why in the beginning, when we read, I want to say it's in Matthew chapter 5, where he says, if your righteousness doesn't exceed that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. Honestly, after you read about what the scribes and the Pharisees were doing, it doesn't really sound like it's that hard for your righteousness to exceed theirs. They were doing wicked stuff. There should never even be a conversation about blood money going on in the priesthood, and yet, here we are. Verse 7. So they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field as a burial place for strangers. Therefore that field has been called the field of blood to this day. Then was fulfilled what was spoken of by the prophet Jeremiah, saying, and they took 30 pieces of silver, the price of him on whom a price had been set by some of the sons of Israel, and they gave them a potter's field as the Most High directed them. So, it says prophet Jeremiah, but I want to say it's, let me look something up, just out of pure curiosity. 30 silver. So, Zechariah 11, it talks about this. So they weighed 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. Okay, so I've seen interpretations of this. They're like, well, how is it wrong? But it's not actually wrong. They would have had certain prophets like divided up. So when he says Jeremiah and it's in Zechariah, it's not entirely wrong there, actually. So it's just how they would have divided up the scriptures into categories. I've seen stuff about that, but that is in Zechariah, so not Nehemiah. My bad. But yes, this was prophesied to happen in the prophets, though. Verse 11. Now Yeshua stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Yeshua said, "You have said so." I like that answer. He's just like, yeah, you're acknowledging it or else I wouldn't be here, But when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many things they testify against you?" So they're bearing false witness against the Messiah. But he gave him no answer, not even a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. So the demeanor of Yeshua, right, it must have just been like, because just by not talking, somebody wouldn't be like amazed, right? Like, and I could be off, this is my opinion of the situation. But there must have been something in his demeanor and in this situation that amazed the governor, where he wasn't like, it wasn't just him sitting there silent, There are some apocryphal writings about this in detail. I want to say, it was so long ago when I read it. The Testament of... Oh, you guys, I need your help. Who is that Pharisee that Yeshua met with when he was talking about being born again? The name is escaping me. If one of you knows, that'd be fantastic. It's the Pharisee that he was having that conversation about being born again with. How can I be born again? What's that guy's name? Nicodemus. Thank you, guys. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. There's a testament in the Apocrypha called the Testament of Nicodemus, and it goes into more details about this subject. And there's more discourse and more information about what was going on with Yeshua and Pilate. So I believe the Testament of Nicodemus, I think you can find it on the Lost Books app, which I know you can get on iPhone. I don't know about Android. But also it is, you should be able to find it on, what is it? JewishWritings.org. They got a bunch of apocryphal books online that you can find. But anyways, there is a testament of Nicodemus that talks more about this. Either way, though, even if you don't consider that and read it, that just in this situation, it makes me believe that there's more going on here than him just sitting silent, or else, the governor wouldn't have been amazed by the situation, because he was obviously the demeanor of Yeshua and what was going on here. He was like, this guy's like the real deal, like this isn't like just a normal dude, so he obviously saw that. No matter which writing you want to read or not read, just in this situation alone, obviously the governor is amazed at something. So let's keep reading from verse 15. Now, at the feast, the governor was accustomed to release for the crowd any one prisoner whom they wanted. And they had then a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you, Barabbas or Yeshua, who is called the Christ?" For he knew that it was out of envy that they had delivered him up. So obviously, he knew, again, governor knew that this wasn't right. So he's trying to like free himself from this situation here. And this is actually fulfilling more in the Torah, the scapegoat. This is about the scapegoat, right? You send one into the wilderness to be free to carry the sins, and one is slaughtered. So this is a scapegoat situation playing out from the Torah. For he knew that that out of envy they had delivered him up. Besides, while he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him today in a dream." So even the dude's wife was having visions, and she's like, and she called him a righteous man. Like, she even knew. She's like, you need to not be part of this situation, right? So a lot of different things are playing out right here. A lot of biblical things are playing out right now. And again, when I say biblical, remember the New Testament wasn't written when this was all going down. So this is all out of Torah and prophets playing out right now. Nehemiah, some stuff in the Torah playing out, visions to rulers and their families, kind of like it happened with Joseph, like it happened with Daniel. So a lot of stuff is playing out right now. Verse 20. Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and destroy Yeshua. The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what shall I do with Yeshua, who is called the Christ?" They all said, "Let him be crucified." What a wicked bunch of people. And remember, these are Jews. These are his people that are screaming and chanting. Obviously, it's not all of them. A lot of people knew he was the Messiah and weren't in this clan of people here. But all these prideful people, all these wicked, like, again, he was delivered up by the temple. The priests of the temple wanted him to get killed. They wanted him gone. And he never broke Torah. All the times they tried to get him to trip up and say something or do something against Torah so they would have a reason to kill him. It never, ever happened, which is exactly why they had to deliver him up to Pilate, to the Romans, because they had absolutely no justification to kill him, and they knew it. But they wanted to pass it off. Say, oh, no, the Romans. It was the Romans. They did it, right? Right, and even Pilate knew that it was shady what they were doing, and his wife knew it was shady what they were doing. But they're in the midst of wickedness. So anyways, they all said, "Let him be crucified." Verse 23, and he said, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Let him be crucified!" Right? So they were just like, no. They were pressuring him into doing it. They were chanting. There were priests and scribes here from the temple chanting for an innocent man to be killed at the hands of the Romans because they couldn't do it. They wanted to do it, but they couldn't do it because he never, ever broke Torah law. He broke Talmudic law all the time, and that pissed them off. But they knew that they weren't able to kill him over that. They didn't have the power to do that. So that's why they just kept chanting, "Let him be crucified," trying to pressure the Romans into doing it. So when Pilate saw that, he was gaining nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning. He took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." And all the people answered, This is one of the most messed up things recorded in the New Testament, in my opinion. This right here, what they're about to say. This is so messed up. And I do not know how any decent human being could ever do this. Ever. Listen to this. Verse 25. And all the people answered, "His blood be on us and on our children." And on our children. They're not just willing to curse themselves from this situation. They're willing to curse their own children for this situation. And that's exactly what they've done. That's what they did leading up to 70 AD. And that's what's happening right now in the political state of Israel. This curse right now is playing out again on them. Let it be on us and our children. And they're over there as descendants of Judah, as descendants of Levi, as descendants of Benjamin. And they are starting to do their own thing yet again. And to try and usurp the power of Yeshua once again. Which, as far as I'm concerned, is what leads to the beginning of the final push for the end times. Again, I posted a video about this. But they're doing the same thing again. They're following their own man-made traditions, their own man-made laws, and it's wickedness before the Most High, and their sacrifices aren't acceptable. Right? And again, I talked about this in that short video I posted last night. Oh, yeah, absolutely. They Grateful One, so they did know what they were doing. Absolutely, they knew what they were doing. Again, remember, there are priests and scribes here with them. They are the ones that came to the garden of Gethsemane, I always mess that word up, the garden to get Yeshua and bring him to the Romans. And they're inciting the crowd, chanting to let him be crucified, and they knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted him gone because he was stomping on their power and authority, and they did not want to yield it to him. They didn't want to yield it to Yeshua. And again, this just proves how wicked they were. How evil they were, right? So, again, to say, and we're going to read this when we go through Acts. Again, there's more stuff that pops up in Acts about this, but we read it in Matthew chapter 3 with John the Baptist. Like, don't say you have Abraham as your father. He can raise up stones for children, right? You need to stop being wicked, So, again, this whole idea of our bloodline matters more than our heart, that is never something that you see in the Bible. That is never something you see in the Bible. Yeah, and this is exactly why the new covenant was opened to all of us, that we could be grafted in because of this wickedness playing out right here. So, they knew what they were doing, and they knew that they had no right to crucify or kill Yeshua. Didn't Yeshua say, forgive them for they know not what they were doing? Yeah, you know what? I don't want to get too much into interpretation of that. There are manuscripts that say, do not forgive them for they know what they're doing. I don't know. Frankly, I don't know. I could see it both ways. I could see Yeshua saying, don't forgive them. You know, they know what they're doing and they have what's coming to them. But I can also see the heart of Yeshua saying, forgive them for they know not what they do, right? Now, does that mean they're going to be saved? I don't think so. But it's the same thing that Moses was doing. He's like, hey, I know they're wicked, but forgive them, right? Please don't take wrath out on them. So it could be the same type of thing with Yeshua playing out on the cross. And he obviously, he might not have been talking. There was a lot of people there at his crucifixion. So we're getting into some opinion stuff. There's a lot of people there at the crucifixion. And you know how people tend to just go with the crowd, you know, what the crowd is doing, what the crowd says. So there was a lot of people at the crucifixion, and they might have thought that Yeshua was a wicked person, because in their ignorance, they didn't know, or they hadn't had an experience with him, or they hadn't heard. So he might have been praying for them, for those people that were there. And because they thought, you know, there were definitely some people there that knew what they were doing. They absolutely 100% knew that he was a righteous, sinless man, and they were crucifying him. But I don't believe everybody that was there knew it. They, again, probably just in their ignorance. You know, they'll put, there was a sermon from a mainstream pastor called Paul Washer a while back. I don't even know if the guy's alive. I'm not sure. This must have been 20 years ago, that he gave this sermon, and it was recorded. And he basically said, like, I'm paraphrasing and I'm not going to do a great job. Basically it says, he said in his sermon, he was talking about the disciples and the prophets, and he's like, they're going to say a bunch of evil stuff. Like, do you think they weren't telling the world that Yeshua and his disciples were, you know, whatever they were? I don't even want to say what Paul Washer was saying, because it'll probably get my live stream cut off, but like, bad stuff. They were slandering them, lying about them to the world, and the world was believing. And how often have we seen that just play out in this world, where they say, oh, this guy is so bad, he's an enemy of the state, and then 20 years down the road, all this information comes out that the guy was actually a good person and trying to tell the truth, and they were trying to silence him, right? Like, it's not like that's never happened in human history. So he was basically saying in that sermon that they're saying all this evil stuff. They're calling them these wicked men. They're saying that they're breaking the law. They're enemies of the state. They're doing all these things, right? And there might have been people there that were believing the state when they were saying that, believing the priesthood with their lies and their false testimony. And if Yeshua was praying to forgive them for they know not what they're doing, I would imagine he's praying for the people that have been deceived by the world, not the people that willfully know what they're doing. That in nowhere in the Bible, when someone knows what they're doing and they're going against Yah, is it a good thing? So I doubt Yeshua was praying for the people that knew what they were doing. But there were Roman soldiers hammering in those nails that were just following orders. They had no idea. They were just like, oh, it's just another prisoner, right? They were the police officers of the day, and they were just following orders from the state. You know, they thought they were carrying out lawful orders for some bad guy, right? He could have been praying for them. Or people in the crowd that were just believing the news media. Oh, this guy is preaching a bunch of wickedness. This guy's a terrible person. Like, this is good that they are punishing him, right? He was praying for those people. He wasn't praying, in my opinion, he wasn't praying for the chief priests and the elders and the scribes that knew exactly what they were doing, that wanted the blood of him to even pass down to their children because they wanted him gone so much, right? So that's what I believe. If Yeshua was praying for the forgiveness of those people, it was for the people that were doing and believing things in ignorance and didn't know the gravity of the situation they were in. It wasn't for the people that knew what they were doing. It wasn't for these chief priests that he spent all of Matthew 23 rebuking because of their hypocrisy and lawlessness and wickedness. I guarantee you he wasn't praying for the forgiveness of those people. And I guarantee you the Father's not going to forgive them. They crucified the Messiah, who is sinless, because of their own wicked ambitions. There's absolutely no way they're going to be in the kingdom. There's like, even the Messiah praying for you, I doubt you're getting in. You did some evil, wicked stuff, right? So anyways, I assume he would have been praying for just the people that were believing the lies of the world. People following orders who truly didn't know what was going on. That's what I think. Anyways, let's keep reading. His blood be on us and our children, and it is. And that's wicked. I would never, ever want my horrible actions to pass down to my children. I would not want my children to suffer because of what I did. And it just shows their heart right there. In this verse, it just shows how wicked they were. They wanted a righteous man gone so bad so that they could keep their power and control over the people, that they were willing to let their children suffer the punishment of their actions. That is wickedness. That is evil. That is pure evil. And I guarantee you, he's not praying for the forgiveness of those people. But anyways, verse 26. Then he released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Yeshua, delivered him to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governors took Yeshua into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole battalion before him. And they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him and twisted together the crown of thorns, and they put it on his head, the reed at his right hand, and kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they spit on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. Evil. The Father will have vengeance for that, guaranteed. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him. And here, you know what? Real quick, before we read that one, I don't want to get too far past the scarlet robe here. I want to read a couple of. I want to read just quickly. I have talked about this in the past, but I want to briefly talk about it because there's some stuff that you get in the other Gospels, like John. But Yeshua is fulfilling Torah prophecy right here that people don't realize too. I've done videos about this in the past. Let me see if I can find it. I hope I have it here and it's not on the phone I'm live streaming with. Okay, here it is. Good. I do have it. All right. So in Leviticus 16 and in Leviticus 14, it talks about cleansing the sins of whatever, cleansing the sins of the house. So in John 3:5, we're told that he came to cleanse sins, right? Then we're told in Leviticus 16, we're in Leviticus 14. So it's Leviticus 16:30 and Leviticus 14:48 through 53, right? And I'm sorry, that was 1 John 3:5. That he cleansed sins. So in Leviticus 16:30 and Leviticus 14:48 through 53, we are told how the priesthood cleanses a house, how they cleanse a house of sin, right? So he's cleansing the house of Israel through this. We're told we need a high priest. Well, Yeshua is the high priest, Hebrews 4:14. We're told that we need blood and water because they're supposed to sprinkle it on the house. That's in John 19:34. The blood and water that comes out when they pierce his side, a pericardial effusion, right? So that's checkmarked. Scarlet, we just read, Matthew 27:28. You need scarlet. You need hyssop. We see that in John 19:29. John 19:29. And you need cedar. That's what they made crosses out of, right? That's the stakes that they hung people on. They were made out of cedar wood. So everything in the Torah that we're told is needed to cleanse a house is present at the crucifixion of Yeshua. That is no coincidence. Because who is he cleansing through this? He's cleansing the house of Israel so that they can be grafted back into covenant, so that the doors can be opened back up for the people to come into covenant with the Most High. So again, I have done studies on this in the past, but again, I'll give you, if you're writing down, taking notes, and you want to go look into it yourself, I'll give you all these verses again real quick. Leviticus 16:30, 1 John 3:5, Leviticus 14:48 through 53, John 19:34, Matthew 27:28, and John 19:29. All of those verses talk about what is needed to cleanse the house from sin. And it is all present at the crucifixion of our Messiah. That is no coincidence whatsoever. Right? And you see a lot more Torah stuff playing out when they give him the bitter water, the vinegar on the what did they give it on? I can't remember. But anyways, that's needed for the law of jealousy. You missed the 3rd and 5th verses. John, the 3rd and 5th. Well, you'll be able to go back if you want and read. It'll be on my YouTube. But one more time, I'll give it to you guys one more time. Leviticus 16:30, 1 John 3:5, Leviticus 14:48 through 53, Hebrews 4:14, John 19:34, Matthew 27:28, and John 19:29. But everything that's done at the crucifixion is fulfilling the Torah, is fulfilling something needed in order for the people to be grafted back into covenant. Very, very interesting stuff. And if you haven't watched the studies I've done on how Yeshua fulfilled the law, they're in my Messiah playlist on TikTok. And if you just search on YouTube, Sheepdog Ministries Fulfilled, you should find, I think I did 4 studies about that. And then the one about this, it's how Yeshua cleansed the house of Israel, or how Jesus, it might be Jesus, how Jesus cleansed the house of Israel, something along those lines. I can't remember the titles. I have so many videos floating around, it's hard for me to remember all the titles of them. But they are there. They're in my Messiah playlist on TikTok, and they are on my YouTube. If you just type Sheepdog Ministries Fulfilled on YouTube, you should be able to find them. So very, very interesting stuff, though. No coincidence, and all things that needed to be fulfilled so that people could be grafted into the new covenant, which we just read about last week. This is the new covenant given in my blood, right? So there's no way we could ever go into covenant with the Most High without Yeshua doing this for us, without his sacrifice, because he fulfilled laws and he fulfilled punishments that only he could do. Because if we had to do them, we couldn't do it. It's impossible. It's impossible for us to do it. This is why it talks about in the prophets, like, it pleased him to put him up there. It pleased the Most High with what Yeshua did, and how there's no greater love than laying down your life for that of a friend and brother in the book of John, because that's exactly what Yeshua is doing. That's why it pleased the Most High when he did this, because only he could do it, and he did it for many. He did it for many. I don't know how many people are going to be saved. I really don't. It's certainly not everybody that professes the name Jesus. That's for sure. I know that for a fact. That's scriptural. Even Yeshua tells us he's going to turn away believers that profess him. Right? So I know that. The mainstream idea of all you got to do is profess Christ with your mouth and you'll be saved. This is not biblically accurate. But there's going to be a lot of people saved. Like in the grand scheme of things. You know, maybe not compared to how many people have lived on the earth. Because we're talking about a very small fraction in comparison to all the wicked people that have lived and that will perish. But there will be, I don't know, millions, maybe tens of millions, possibly hundreds of millions, who knows, that will be saved in the end throughout the course of human history. And none of those people, none of them, not a single one of them, could come into covenant with the Most High if it wasn't for what Yeshua is doing right here. So don't cut Messiah Yeshua out of this whole process of sanctification, because we need to keep the laws. That's a fact. We need to be righteous. We need to walk in his righteousness and be obedient to the best of our ability. And we need to love him and love our neighbor as ourselves. But we can't do it without Yeshua. You'll never get in. So when people tell you that Torah observers reject the Messiah and what he did, that's coming from a huge place of ignorance. You don't know what we believe and what we teach and what we know about the Bible, because I know that there is nothing I can do to enter the kingdom of heaven. I can't pay some amount of money and enter the kingdom of heaven. I can't just get circumcised and enter the kingdom of heaven. I can't just keep the Sabbath and enter the kingdom of heaven. I can't just not steal from people and enter the kingdom of heaven. It's not how it works. But if I ignore the righteousness and continue to walk in rebellion, that's a sure sign that I'm getting kicked out. Hebrews chapter 10. Right? But I cannot, no matter what I do, enter into the kingdom of heaven without Yeshua and his sacrifice for me. And if I really want to honor his sacrifice for me, then I would do what he said to do. And he said, submit yourself to the Most High. Seek first the kingdom of God. Go and sin no more. Observe everything that was commanded of you in the Torah. That's what our Messiah said. So if you really want to honor his sacrifice for you, you should probably do what he said to do. And he constantly told you to walk in righteousness and to no longer sin. To do your very best. So, again, those people that think that I'm kicking Yeshua out of the picture because I'm trying to walk in righteousness, you don't know what you're talking about. And you're on a very dangerous path. You're not on that narrow path that Yeshua said few would find. That leads to salvation. So, anyways. Verse 31. And when they had mocked him... Dang it. Sorry, guys. My nose is running like crazy. All right. Verse 31. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of his robe and put his own clothes on him and led him away to crucify him. As they went out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. They compelled this man to carry his cross. All right. There's some very interesting stuff we could talk about in regards to even that, right? If they compel you to walk a mile with them, go with them too. Pick up your cross and follow me daily, right? So we see more stuff in his teachings playing out in his crucifixion. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall. That's the bitter drink from the Numbers 5 curse of jealousy. Anyways, mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had him crucified, they divided his garments among them by casting lots. That's another thing that I just find utterly messed up. Right? He's not even dead yet. And they're waiting for him to die, and they took his stuff, and they're like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, and they can't even They can't even figure it out, so they're gambling. And I don't mean to place like, I don't mean to call casting lots gambling, because it's not. Yeshua, sorry, let me step back again. Just a real quick blurb on casting lots. Like, we know that nothing is done on this earth without the hand of Yah, right? Romans 8:28. We know that everything is working for his purpose. And Solomon talks about how God decides when you're casting lots. And in Acts, they cast lots for the spot of the 12th disciple, which was not Paul, by the way. A lot of people think it was, but it's not. So they cast lots to decide who was going, like the disciples, they cast lots to figure out who was going to fill the 12th slot. So Yah is deciding through the casting of lots, right? So I don't mean to call it gambling, because that's not what it was, but in essence, right? And I doubt these men understood the gravity of that situation and understood, casting of lots and all that. But in essence, they're throwing the dice for seeing who gets to steal his stuff before he's even dead. And that's messed up. Actually, if you read in John, he does drink when he's up on the cross. This was something else. I believe. I could be wrong. But he does drink it in John. I gave you the verses for that. He drinks the bitter drink in John. It's recorded in John. So I think this is possibly something else, because this is before, as far as I can tell, before he was actually up on the cross, and they handed him the bitter drink when he was on the cross. So I think this is different. I think what they handed him here is different than what's recorded for us in John chapter 19, when he was actually up on the cross and drank. So just look into it. But it appears to me that they offered him this before. But again, look into it for yourself, because we do have it recorded in John chapter 19 that on the cross they gave him something on a sponge and he drank it. That's the bitter drink. So anyways, they sat down and kept watch over him. And over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Yeshua, the King of the Jews." Then 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself if you are the Son of Yah. Come down from the cross." So also the chief priests with the scribes and elders mocked him, right? I don't think he was praying for them. He saved others. He cannot save himself. And if he did save himself, we wouldn't be saved. So we have the benefit of knowing what he was doing up there. That we couldn't be saved if it wasn't for what he was doing. And that's why he did it. He did it for those who were to be saved. He certainly wasn't doing it for those who were mocking him and who knew exactly what they were doing. He could have gotten right off that cross, sent lightning down to destroy them. But if he did that, we wouldn't be saved. And it goes much deeper than a lot of people understand or were ever taught. And you can see that in some of those teachings about the law of divorce and remarriage, the law of jealousy, the law of cleansing the house. Like in those studies that I've gone over, you can see the scriptures about how he needed to do this, how he had to do this, or else we would never be grafted into covenant. So he did it for us. He withstood and endured that so that people like us had a chance to get grafted into covenant. So that's why I'm saying, like, seriously, if you really want to honor the Messiah, if you want to honor what he did for you and I up there, the only thing we can ever truly do is listen to his instructions. And his instructions were to stop sinning and to obey the commandments of God and to walk in righteousness. That was his command. And he said it to everybody, not just Jews. He said it to everybody. You're going to see when we get into Matthew 28, do and observe everything that I commanded you. And he commanded us. We've seen it multiple times throughout the Gospels. He commanded them to keep the Torah. Not just the 2 greatest commandments, love God and love your neighbor. Not just the 10 commandments. Everything. He commanded us to do all of it. Whatever was in our power to do. We've read that multiple times throughout this study in Matthew. And we're going to see at the very end of Matthew that it was for everybody, not just for the Jews. It wasn't just pre-crucifixion. It was for everyone, for all of time. And remember, you shouldn't even need him to say that. When you read back through the Torah, it tells you that his laws are for everyone that wants to be his people, Jew or Gentile. It says it over and over and over again. Numbers 15 through 16 for one. We'll read it next week. Right? My laws are for everyone. The sojourner, the Jew, for Israel, everyone. Right? And he said that my laws are for all of your generations, to be kept throughout all of your generations. He didn't say, oh, my laws are to be kept by some of you, but not by these people later down the road when I put them in a better dispensation. No, that's not what the Bible says. So anyways, his laws are for everyone, and Yeshua commanded us to do it. So if you really want to honor what he did for you on the cross, then stop sinning. Do your best to walk in righteousness. Do your best to walk in his footsteps. Be obedient to the Father, your Creator, who you claim to already love. Right? Like, why would we as Christians ever fight that we should do what God asked us to do, and that it's not in our best interest to do it? It's insane. Like, I can't even believe it. Like, you people have clearly never read the Bible if you think that his laws, all of them, aren't profitable for us to do, or that we should do them, or that there's no penalty whatsoever for breaking them. People don't want to stop sinning. They just want to be delivered from the punishment of it. They want to keep sinning and be escaped from punishment. That's what I see in a lot of Christianity. Go on, Daisy, go outside. That's what they want. People don't want to stop sinning. They don't want to crucify their flesh. They just want to be delivered from the punishment of it. And I see that reoccurring a lot in conversations with mainstream believers, self-professed mainstream believers, right? They don't want to stop sinning. They just want to be able to keep sinning and not get punished for it. But that's not in the Bible anywhere. That doesn't happen. There's no dispensation where God suddenly changes his mind and says, oh yeah, my rules don't apply anymore. You're good. You just do this one little thing, and you can keep on sinning and come on into the kingdom when you die. It'll be all good. You're not going to see that in the Bible. And people don't like that because it doesn't itch the ears, right? Which, ironically, they use twisted and out of context interpretation of Paul to justify their lawlessness and what they want to believe. But Paul is the one that consistently talked about obedience, and he said to beware of the ear-itching doctrine that was not taught to you. And what are they doing? They're not following what was taught to them in the Bible, and they're following that ear-itching doctrine that says, hey, you don't got to worry about a darn thing. You believe in Jesus, doesn't matter what you do, you're already saved. And hey, to boot, you don't even have to worry about the end times because you're going to get raptured out of here before stuff gets hard. Seriously? Where's that in the Bible? It ain't there. It ain't there. Love to be wrong about it, but it ain't there. Who wouldn't love that ear-itching doctrine? I would love it if all you had to do was believe in Yeshua to be saved. Because I believe in Yeshua, obviously, or I wouldn't be here right now talking to you guys. I believe in it. I know he is who he says he is. I know he's the Messiah. I know he's prophesied in the Bible before all of time, during time, and after time. I know he is who he says he is, and I believe it. I wouldn't believe it, or I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe it. So, anyways, that means I'm good. That means I'm saved. I'm not leaning on my own righteousness. I understand that the Bible defines leaning on your own righteousness as ignoring God's commandments. It says it a lot of times in the Old and New Testament. I have videos about it, going over the scriptures, not my opinions. But that'd be great, because that means I'm saved no matter what I do. That'd be fantastic. But that itches the ears quite a bit. And it leads to pride, arrogance, and rebellion and lawlessness. And I would love to get raptured out of here before stuff gets crappy. I don't want to go through the end times. It sounds terrible. Even for the people who are spared, it sounds absolutely terrible. I'd love to get raptured out of here before all that happens. But you know what? I acknowledge what the Bible actually says. And I acknowledge all the preserved history in it for us. And it's just not what the mainstream wants you to believe. And of course, Satan wants you to believe that. Satan crept into the church. We saw it in Matthew. There was a demon in the synagogue in Matthew chapter 4. Right? You think he hasn't crept into your churches now? Like demons can't go to church? Oh, they can go to church. They can run churches, and they do. Right? And they have you believe in all kinds of lies out there to confuse you and to set you off on a bad path because they hate you. They hate you. Anyways, I don't want to fall for it. Let's get back to this before I get too far off on my soapbox. Verse 41. So also the chief priests with the scribes and elders mocked him, saying, he saved others, he cannot save himself. He is the king of Israel. Let him come down off that cross, and we will believe him. He trusts in Yah, let Yah deliver him. If he desires for him, for he said, I am the son of Yah, and the robbers who were crucified with him also reviled him in the same way. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land, until the 9th hour. I think that's coming again too. And about the 9th hour, Yeshua cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lima sabachthani. I'm sorry, I messed that up. This is my Elohim, why have you forsaken me? And you know what? I find this interesting too. I'm not going to talk about it real long, but it was so bad what he was going through, like so bad. And again, if you read about the law of jealousy that he was fulfilling while he was on the cross, it's bad. It is not good, right? It is terribly horrible punishment. And he was going through that for us. He was enduring that for us. And there's no amount of knowing that you're going to be okay that makes it not suck. And like, I can't even begin to describe the horrific stuff he was going through on that cross for us. But if you've ever done anything tough in your life, I mean, where your body feels like it's going to give out at any moment and where it's just horribly hard and you're not sure if you can get through it. Even, like, I've been through situations like that where it's like, man, my body's about to give out, like, and it hurts real bad, you know? And I know that I'm not going to die. I know that you know, it's not the end of me on earth, you know? And Yeshua knew that. Yeshua knew he was going to be raised again. Obviously, he prophesied it multiple times. But when you're in the moment, when you're in that pain, when you're in that hardship, like, it's just like every second feels like an hour. And again, I have not even gone through a shadow of the pain that he was going through. But, I mean, if you want like the littlest tiny example of this, go do a wall squat. Go lean on a wall and sit down into the wall until your from your knee down is straight up and then your thighs are at a 90-degree angle, and just stay on that wall as long as you can. Just sit there and stay. And after, depending on how good or bad shape you're in, after 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, your legs start to catch on fire and they start to shake. They're like, they used to love making us do wall squats when I was in the first responder academies that I went to. They would make you do them until your legs collapsed, and then they'd give you a minute or two and make you do it again. And it was terrible, right? And you're sitting there and your legs are shaking and they feel like they're on fire, and you're just like trying to breathe through it, and you're like, surely it's been 5 minutes, you know, and you look up and it's been 30 seconds and you're like, oh my gosh, it just feels like it's never going to end, right? And it's just horrible. And that's the tiniest little bit of again, not even to be compared to what the Messiah is going through. So when he says here, you know, when he is in this moment, remember, our Messiah is a human, right? He's much more than a human, but he's a human. He's in a human body. And he's going through this massive, massive amount of pain. Massive. To the likes that none of us understand and have ever been through. I can understand even having just a little picture of, even a wall squat can give you a little tiny bit of understanding in that moment where you're just like say to yourself, I'm going to sit here on this wall for 20 minutes and see how that goes for you after, a minute or two, if you can even make it that long. Right? And he's getting tortured up here. He's the pain, unbelievable. We cannot know how bad it is. And I hope I never do find out how bad it is, because it's bad. So I can understand why in this moment he was like, why have you forsaken me? In that human flesh, I would feel the same way, right? And we see stuff like this happening in the past, especially if you read the Apocrypha, when it talks about Noah in the flood. Noah was so terrified in the flood, on the ark. He was so terrified by what he saw that he thought that Yah was going to let him die. And he knew Yah made the ark to preserve all of humanity and the animals. Obviously, he had faith in Yah, but he was so scared in his human body during the flood that he thought they were going to die too. Right? And we get that in the Apocrypha. I want to say in Jasher, it talks about that. And then we see it with Lot, right? With Lot and his daughters. It was so bad. His wife got turned to a pillar of salt. They saw fire raining from the heavens. It was so bad. Again, this is in the Apocrypha too. But they thought his daughters did what they did with him because they thought they were the only people left on earth. They literally thought the entire world was destroyed by fire because of what they had witnessed from Sodom and Gomorrah. So they thought they needed to repopulate the earth with Lot. That's why it happened. The daughters were so terrified by what they had seen, they thought they were the only people left on earth. So we've seen this before, right? Where people get so terrified in their human flesh, in this situation, that they even though they're spared, they think, that Yah is forsaking them. So I can understand why he would say this, even knowing and prophesying that he is going to be raised again. I can see why he would say and feel that way in this moment. So I'm just saying, that's just, I can understand it, right? I obviously can't understand it like that, in that moment, exactly what he was going through or feeling, but I can understand why he would say that and feel that way in that moment, even knowing that he is going to be delivered from it. Because there are situations where you can get a picture of that, where the pain you're feeling is so bad and you're so not used to it that you know you're going to get through it. You know that it's going to be fine in a couple hours or in a couple days or in a couple weeks. But in the moment, it's so crappy that it just seems like it will never end, and it just sucks. Right? So anyways, all I'm getting at is from a human perspective, I can understand why he said that on the cross, even knowing what he knows. Verse 48, which means, why have you forsaken me? Verse 47. And some of the bystanders hearing it said, this man is calling Elijah. And one of them at once ran and took a sponge filled with sour wine. There we go. And put it on a reed and gave it to him to drink. So there we go. We didn't even have to go to John 19. It's in Matthew right here for us too. That was a different situation where they were trying to give him wine with gall to drink. This is the sour drink that they were talking, because it even says sour wine. So it would have been like vinegar. If you've ever made vinegar from wine, I have, and it gets real bitter, right? It turns into vinegar. Wine turns into vinegar. The red wine vinegar, white wine vinegar. So they gave him a bitter drink. If you ever drank vinegar, pretty bitter, right? And so bringing us back to the law of jealousy again, the bitter drink that they have to drink in order to start this cycle of punishment. So gave him the bitter drink right there. That's verse 48. But the others said, wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him. And Yeshua cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two. So they record this in extra biblical books as well. The veil was torn in two. Like, they don't even deny that this happened. And then what really gets crazy is when they start talking about all the weird stuff that they record happening in the temple that never happened before after Yeshua's crucifixion. Like, they had an eternal flame that never went out, right? It was like a forever flame, and every night it would go out, right? And they'd have to restart it. And then they would lock the doors to the temple every night. And every day when they came back, it would be busted open. And in the Day of Atonement, for every year since they rebuilt the temple this second time, until Yeshua's crucifixion, when they would go in, they would do the scapegoat offering, and then they would do the Day of Atonement sacrifices, and that veil, it would turn red throughout the course of the year, right? And then the priest had white strings on his garment that would turn red throughout the course of the year, as in blood, as in sin, as in not a clean, pure garment, right? And after they did the scapegoat, after they did the sacrifice in the temple, the veil would turn white before all of the people. Everybody could see it. And the garment, the strings on the priest's garment, they would turn white after he came out of the Holy of Holies. Never happened again. And the lot for the scapegoat, because they would cast a lot for the scapegoat, for left or the right. It came up to be the same one every single time from the crucifixion of Yeshua until the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. It came up the same time. Someone did the odds on that. I watched a video about it. The odds of that happening 40 times in a row is astronomical. Astronomical. It is statistically impossible that the lot would come up for the same one every time. And it did after this. So they record all of this. They record all this weird stuff happening at the temple after the crucifixion of Yeshua. And they still, I don't get it. Even after that, they're still like, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. I don't get it. It's like, how much of a sign do you need? Right? And I guess, remember our Torah portion, right? They were so dense, so selfish and stiff-necked. He gave them all those signs in the Exodus, and they still didn't believe. They still disobeyed. They still got all stiff-necked. And then fast forward, a couple thousand years later, they crucify their own Messiah, whom there's a mountain of evidence for, right in front of their very eyes, not only in the scriptures, but in the miracles he's doing. And then, after they crucify him, they are still getting signs of how much they screwed up. Because that sacrifice would symbolize that the sacrifice they gave was acceptable, and he was counting them as clean and pure before him. But since it never turned white ever again, it was blood on their house. And they did say, let his blood be on us and on our children. So what happened for the next 40 years? For the next generation of wickedness. Because it was 40 years from his crucifixion to the destruction of the temple. 40 years of wickedness. A generation. What do we read in the Torah? They were punished 40 years because of their wickedness. Again, so many things replaying. And they're still being blind guides, leading the blind. I just don't know how you could see all that and still be like, oh, we're good. It's all good in the hood. Oh, we didn't screw up or anything. I don't get it. But anyways, let's keep reading. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And the earth shook, and rocks were split, and the tombs were open, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. So one quick resurrection, one of the first.
And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. When the centurion and those who were with him, keeping watch over Yeshua, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, truly, this was the Son of Elohim. So some people understood after that. They were like, oh, crap, we messed up. Some of them did. Obviously, the establishment as a whole didn't turn. They didn't acknowledge what had happened. But anyways, right, and there's a lot of extra biblical stuff that confirms all of this, right? Even the earthquake, the sun getting blotted out, there's extra biblical stuff that confirms this, and even modern day stuff you can go back and look through, like stellarium and archaeological evidence of that earthquake. In fact, some say, I don't know if I believe it or not. I know the Ark of the Covenant, it's in somebody's hands right now, and I truly believe that the Ark of the Covenant is going to come back into play in the modern state of Israel and be part of the abomination of desolation. Because if you've ever seen the movies, like Indiana Jones, right? Loved that one when I was a kid. What did they think? That the Ark of the Covenant gave them the power to control the world, right? And we've seen it play out in biblical history where, whoever had the Ark, blessings came on them and their family. Grateful one, I'll get to that question in just a second. But blessings came on them and their family. And you know what? Interesting that Trump has a replica of the Ark of the Covenant. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually has the real thing. And it's been bringing blessing to his house, how he became a billionaire, how he became the ruler of the world, the president. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has it and brings it back to Jerusalem. And that is part of the whole thing that leads up to the abomination of desolation and the destruction of Jerusalem. If my opinion on that interpretation of Scripture is right. But I'm getting off on subject. Ron Wyatt, if you believe what he said he found or not, supposedly he found the Ark of the Covenant buried under the mount where they crucified our Messiah. And in that earthquake, the ground split open, right? And supposedly some of the blood of Messiah Yeshua leaked down through the earth onto the Ark of the Covenant. There's stuff about him gathering a sample of it and taking he didn't know it was blood at the time, taking it to get analyzed, and they found out it was blood that only had 24 chromosomes, which is impossible since you would, all humans have two parents. But what do we read about the Messiah? He has one human parent, right? He came from one human. And so anyways, interesting. I can't confirm it. Obviously, I don't know. But the story goes that this earthquake split open and some of Messiah Yeshua's blood rained down on the Ark of the Covenant. I could see that being true. But I don't know. Like I said, I can't confirm it. But this earthquake, there's proof of the earthquake. There's proof of the sun getting blotted out. There's extra biblical books, both Jewish texts and Roman texts, that confirm events of this taking place. So for any of you naysayers, there's more evidence for Yeshua and what happened in the New Testament than for anything else in antiquity. Anything. Everything that you were taught in your high school or college history classes is fact. Attila the Hun, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. There is more evidence for what happened in the New Testament than for any of them. Any of them. And they teach it as historical fact. Right? And so anyways, I just find that very interesting. If somebody's new here and hasn't heard any of that, go look into some of this stuff. Don't take my word for it. But the evidence is there if you want to go look. So remember, seek first the kingdom of Yah. Knock, and then the door will be open to you. He's not gonna jam his foot into your door if you don't believe him, if you don't want him, if you don't want to look into it. But if you seek, you're gonna find. And everyone who seeks ends up finding. Doesn't mean they get all the way to the truth, but they do end up finding enough evidence to confirm all of this. So it's all there. But let's keep reading. We are in verse 55. There were also many women there, looking on from a distance, who had followed Yeshua from Galilee, ministering to him, among whom were Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who also was a disciple of Yeshua. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Yeshua. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen shroud and laid it on his own new tomb, where he had cut in the rock. And he rolled the great stone to the entrance of the tomb and went away. And Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there sitting opposite the tomb. The next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember how that impostor said while he was still alive, 'After 3 days I will rise.' Therefore, order the tomb be made secure until the third day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell the people he has risen from the dead. And the last fraud will be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go make it as secure as you can." So they went and made the tomb secure by sealing the stone and setting a guard. Now, that's the end of chapter 27. We'll get into chapter 28 here in a second. But here's something interesting. I don't have the name memorized because it's a very Roman name. But you guys know we've been doing a lot of these name studies, and that Yah does nothing. He does nothing without a purpose. And he tells us, back in the day, now when we name our children, we're like, oh, I like the name William, I like the name Bob, I like the name Mary, but we don't think about what the name means anymore. Most people don't pick based off of, a name meaning. They pick something off of, what it is. So back in the day, Jacob came out grabbing his heel, so they named him Jacob, which means heel grabber, right? Esau came out red and hairy, so they named him Esau, which means red and hairy, right? So they named him after what they were, right? So I got thinking, because all these name studies mean something. Like the names of the cities mean something. The events that took place in them mean something. He does nothing in this book by accident. Nothing. Right? And we might not understand it all, but I know for a fact he does nothing without a reason for it, whether we understand it or not. So I recently was reading an extra biblical text that actually named the guard. It named the guard that was guarding the tomb. And I was like, I wonder. So I looked up the guy's name, and it means the stone. It meant the stone. Right? And what was he guarding? He was guarding the stone. And remember, this guy isn't named in the Bible anywhere. It's not recorded in a Hebrew text. This was an extra biblical text that recorded the guy's name. So the guy who guarded the stone for Yeshua's tomb was named the stone, right? And I'm like, he wasn't there by accident either. He wasn't assigned that post at random. Right? And nobody in the moment understands that this is going on. But I just found it to be extremely interesting when I read that. And that was I read that a few days ago. It was this last week that I read it. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. That's really interesting, So he does nothing without a purpose. Absolutely nothing. And it's all recorded for us because think about it. This is prophecy. How else is he going to get a dense, wicked people like us to realize that he is in control of the situation? He's in control of the world, and it is going to play out exactly like he told us it's going to play out, so that we understand his glory and his majesty and his power. And he did it in the littlest things that people don't even think about. Like when he says, I want this guy, son of this guy, I want this guy, son of this guy to go do this thing. And those names tell out the whole story of what he's going to do. And then you fast forward to a minute detail, like the Roman guard who is guarding the stone to Yeshua's temple, and the guy's name literally means the stone. Like, that's just wild. You know, like, this book is prophecy. This book is Yah giving us undeniable evidence of what he is doing and what he's going to do for the people that are called by his name. So don't think that what is done in this book is done by accident or without purpose, because Yah is guiding this whole thing. He is the creator, and his prophecy will come true. And the more you look into it, the more you're going to find evidence for his power and majesty. And I think it's good to do that because it helps humble our heart to his power. So that hopefully in the situation, whether we understand it or not, we're not the group of people that are grumbling against him. That we're not like, why did you bring us out here to kill us? Why did you do this terrible thing? Why is this happening in my life? You know, it's all for a reason. It's all for testing. And if we endure, if we are the generation that doesn't choose wickedness, we can enter the kingdom. We could have eternity with Yeshua, right? And I imagine there will be no more need of prophecy, you know, coming soon, because all of it played out for the people who are called by his name, who are drawing near to him, who want to enter into the spiritual Goshen. So anyways, I just think that's extremely, extremely interesting and another lesson to learn from. Like, we really need to trust this Bible. And if he didn't give us, like, we're not seeing the signs, right? I would love to see the signs. And I like to think, you know, if I got to see what they saw, I wouldn't be that way nowadays. Back then, if I was with them, I probably would have been one of the ones grumbling and murmuring, right? But now, knowing what I know now, having the information I have, and then getting to see the signs, I like to think I wouldn't be that way, even if it was rough. I like to think. I hope I wouldn't. And you never really know how you're going to act until you're in the situation and it's actually happening. So I'm not going to be all prideful and be like, I'd never do that. I don't know. I might. I hope I don't. But he gave them the signs, right? We read it in the Torah portion, and they still were grumbling and murmuring and didn't have faith and didn't believe and didn't trust in his way and his process. And then all of this, right? Like, we don't see the signs, but he left us so much information down to the most minute detail that he is in control of everything. He's in control of this situation. And if you believe that and if you trust that, boy, oh boy, is it time to start doing what he said to do. Because, like, how much more evidence does he need to give to us? Right? How much more proof does he need to give to us about what he says is true and his way is the way? Right? And that it's going to play out. So I'm just saying, like, when stuff gets hard, if we're in that generation, try to have faith in it, right? Because he, down to the most minute detail, he is in control of this situation. Chapter 28. Now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of Yah descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. And for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. But the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Yeshua who was crucified. He is not here, for he has risen. And he said, come, see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead. And behold, he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him. See, I have told you." So they departed quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy, and they ran to tell his disciples. And behold, Yeshua met them and said, "Greetings." And he said, and they came up and took hold of his feet and worshiped him. All right, there's one thing I want to check on real quick. I don't know if I want to talk about it, so give me 1 second. Let me see something real quick. Give me 1 second. I want to look at something and see if it's what I am suspecting or not. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I've seen this multiple times in the scriptures, and I do want to talk about it for a second before I move forward. In Acts, right? A lot of people use Acts to say that, you know, they changed the Sabbath to Sunday when Paul met with the people on the first day of the week, right? So I don't believe, one, that's not good evidence, right? No man can change God's laws. Not Paul, not even Yeshua. Yeshua said not one dot of the law would change. So obviously Sabbath didn't go away. And even if they did meet on the first day of the week, which on our calendar is Sunday, right? Sunday is the first day of the week, not the seventh day of the week. So even if they did meet on the first day of the week, it doesn't matter. That's not like changing the Sabbath. Like, have you never had a Bible group where you met with people on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday? Like, right? So they broke bread and had a meal together. That's not changing the Sabbath. But in this, I've seen extremely good evidence that Yeshua was crucified on a high Sabbath and raised on a Sabbath, raised on the seventh day Sabbath. Now, they were even talking about the day of preparation before this, which I'm sure is the night before the Sabbath, or some say it's the whole day before the Sabbath. No matter which camp you're in, it doesn't matter. It's before the Sabbath starts at the sunrise. So anyways, in verse 28, it's kind of misleading again, right? So again, there have been many people that have put together great studies about the timeline of Yeshua's crucifixion, showing how, you know, when was the high Sabbath, when was the weekly Sabbath. It makes sense that Yeshua was raised on the seventh day Sabbath because he is the Elohim, or Lord of the Sabbath, Adonai of the Sabbath. It's his day, right? Why wouldn't he be raised on his day? And he healed people on the day. Why wouldn't he be healed and heal all the sins of mankind on his day? It makes sense because the millennial reign, again, is a foreshadow for what he's doing. And it's going to be a time of healing and joy and righteousness in the millennial reign, right? So anyways, a lot of people have put together good videos, and it lines up perfectly with the Zadok calendar since Passover usually takes place on Tuesday night. So he would have been crucified during the Passover, and then 3 days and 3 nights later, he would have been raised on the Sabbath. But if we read this first verse right here in Matthew 28, now after the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, right, it's kind of misleading, like, is he raised on Sunday, right? And again, you can get into some debates here, so I don't want to get into it again, but this could very well be another translator issue, because again, if you look at in Acts, for the word they're using for the first day of the week is Sabbaton, which is the root word for Sabbath. And we see the same thing here in you can go look at it in a Masoretic manuscript on Blue Letter Bible. But right here in Matthew 28, verse 1, it says, now after the Sabbath, which is, oh, you guys, let me try to turn this off. See if you can see a green screen off. Okay. So now, if you read it, now after the first day, or now after the Sabbath, right? We look at that in the Strong's Concordance. I don't know if you guys can see it, but when it talks to that very first part, now after the Sabbath, the word they're using right here is Sabbaton. Sabbaton, right there. Then if we keep scrolling, in the first day of the week, right? When you get down to the part where they talk about it being nearing the first day of the week, it's the same word being used. Sabbaton. So it just puts a little question mark in my mind, you know, about if somebody was trying to, because remember, there is no perfect translation. I like the ESV, but there's errors in the ESV. And there's errors in every single Bible translation I've ever read, which is why I like to go through a bunch of different ones, especially if stuff like this pops up where I'm like, okay, I want to deeply study this. I want to look into this. So, anyways, they're using the same word, the exact same word, same Strong's Concordance word for first day of the week, which doesn't really make sense to me. Unless they're just trying to justify a little bit in their translation, their Sunday ideology. Just an opinion on that one, but what's not an opinion is that for the first day of the week and Sabbath, the exact same word is used in the manuscript, which wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I truly believe he was raised on the Sabbath, and I've seen extremely good evidence that he was raised on the Sabbath. If he was raised on Sunday, it's not really a big deal to me. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change that we need to observe and honor Sabbath. So it's not like a doctrine changing thing, in my opinion. Even if he was raised on Sunday, the first day of the week, it doesn't change the fact that Sabbath is his day and that we need to honor Sabbath no matter what. So it doesn't change anything, right? But I just find it interesting because a lot of people use stuff like this and what's in Acts to push their whole we change the Sabbath to Sunday and that's okay doctrine, and it's not. It's not okay. Nobody was ever given justification to do that in the Bible, not even Yeshua himself, when he said not one dot of this law is going to change, which means you need to be keeping Sabbath when and how he asks. So even if he was raised on Sunday, it doesn't change the fact that we need to observe the seventh-day Sabbath when and how the Most High told us to do it to the best of our ability. So anyways, I'm just saying. Now, you could... good question, Meltdown. You said, isn't Saturday evening the end of the seventh day and the beginning of the first day? Now, that depends. Right? There's three camps of people that keep, well, there's more than that, because you have the lunar Sabbath people, and then you have the solar Sabbath people. So the lunar Sabbath people keep Sabbath based off the moon, which isn't a true seventh-day Sabbath ever. It can't be. So they'll have a Sabbath take place 9 days after their last seventh-day Sabbath, which doesn't make sense. And then you have the solar Sabbath people that mark the beginning of the year, and they say, okay, well, this year Sabbath is Monday, but then next year maybe Sabbath is Friday. And again, there's issues with that one because sure, for most of the year you would have a seventh-day Sabbath, but there would always be a shift at the sunrise or at the equinox where you'd have a gap again in between your seventh-day Sabbaths. So it would still change. You might have 8 days for that Sabbath, or 9 days for that Sabbath, or 6 days for that Sabbath. So that doesn't, the solar and the lunar Sabbath people don't work for me. I don't see how that works at all. In the Saturday Sabbath people, we have three camps of people. So you have sunrise to sunset Sabbath people, which I'll talk about all in a second. You have sunrise on Sabbath to sunset on Sabbath. You have evening Sabbath to evening Sabbath, so Friday evening to Saturday evening. And then you have the sunrise to sunrise Sabbath people, which are that Sabbath it starts in the daylight on Saturday and it goes until the daylight on Sunday, which honestly, if I'm reading this one just for how it's said, if it really did mean the first day of the week, this one would kind of lean toward sunrise to sunrise Sabbath, because it would be that Sabbath was sunrise in the morning, and then it was nearing the end before Sunday of that Sabbath. So that actually kind of lends a little bit of credibility to the sunrise to sunrise Sabbath people. Now, I'll tell you guys briefly. What I do and why I believe what I believe. In my opinion, we don't need to cast stones over it. I believe there's only two biblical ways to keep the seventh-day Sabbath. That's either sunrise to sunset Sabbath or sunrise to sunrise Sabbath. I don't see evening to evening Sabbath anywhere in this book. I have many videos. I made a whole playlist on TikTok about this, and all those videos are on YouTube. So you can search Sheepdog Ministries Sabbath, and I'm sure all of them will pop up. The reason I believe it's sunrise to sunset, or because we are never ever told to keep the weekly Sabbath during the evening. The only 2 Sabbaths we're ever commanded to keep evening to evening are Day of Atonement and Passover. And the reason we're commanded to keep those evening to evening is because they start in darkness. Both those days are darkness. It symbolizes the Passover of our Messiah and Judgment Day, which we know from Amos is a day of darkness and not light. So nothing good starts in darkness, right? So they do end in the day, right? They end with something good happening afterwards, because after the death, after the horrible things of our Messiah, he has risen in the daylight and judgment has passed over us. And then even in Judgment Day, it starts in the darkness, horrible people dying, people in their ignorance. And then we move through the darkness into the light, right? Which is right before Sukkot, where we spend eternity with the Messiah and our Elohim. So they start in darkness, and then they end in the light. They end with the good part of it, right? So that's why we're commanded to keep those. That's why there's the symbolism there for Day of Atonement and Passover. But I can never find anything in this book taking place at night for Sabbath other than Passover and Day of Atonement. Like, I've looked, and I looked in the Apocrypha, and when Yeshua says, are there not 12 hours in a day? And even when you look at the names of the feast days, Yom Teruah, Yom means light, period of light. So all the people that wait to spot the moon for the Feast of Trumpets, I just don't understand that, because literally the day is called the Day of Light. You know, how can you find, I don't know. I guess there could be some symbolism there. But I keep Sabbath currently, with my level of understanding, I keep it sunrise to sunset on Sabbath. And if I was to go back to a 24-hour Sabbath, because I kept evening to evening for years until I actually started seeking it out. And then I'm not trying to talk you into doing it my way. If you want to keep, I still say Shabbat Shalom to people that say, Shabbat Shalom to me in the evening. I had 2 people reach out to me last night because they keep Shabbat evening to evening. I told them Shabbat Shalom. I'm not gonna argue with people about it anymore. Like, I'm just glad that people are keeping it, but just I can articulate this. Like, we're going to have to make an account for everything we do and everything we say or teach to people on Judgment Day. And I can tell Yeshua on Judgment Day why I believed that it was sunrise to sunset, and use scripture, and I can articulate that to him. And I think there would be grace in it for me if I'm wrong. But in my eyes, the only other way to properly celebrate a Sabbath or feast day, excluding Day of Atonement and Passover, is sunrise to sunrise. So I don't grieve those people either. And honestly, again, if we're reading this, Matthew 28, verse 1, now, again, as it's written, not considering what the manuscript says, now after the Sabbath, towards the dawn of the first day of the week, right, like you could make an argument for sunrise to sunrise off of that. You could. I don't think it's a very good one, which is, again, why I don't keep sunrise to sunrise. I know a lot of people that do keep sunrise to sunrise Sabbath, and I see why they do, and I don't grieve them. But again, if you've been with me throughout the last few weeks of our studies, Yah does absolutely nothing without a reason. Nothing. So the fact that he never told us to keep a weekly Sabbath evening to evening, and the fact that you can't find it in scripture, just lends more credibility to me that if he went out of his way to say Passover and Day of Atonement, you keep them evening to evening, there's a reason. That automatically in my mind means that we should be keeping the rest of them a different way, right? Because again, we've seen it numerous times throughout these studies that he does absolutely nothing by accident. He didn't arbitrarily. He wasn't like, you're all keeping them evening to evening, but make sure you're keeping Passover and Day of Atonement. So that's why I personally do it. But I'm not going to grieve you or anybody else if you want to follow evening to evening Sabbath. Evening to evening Sabbath came from Orthodox Judaism, and, well, they got a lot wrong. So, I'm just saying, I understand why people keep evening to evening Sabbath. But when I was seeking it out, when I was studying it, I just couldn't find good evidence for evening to evening Sabbath. And I'm doing it this way because I'm doing it this way. I'm not trying to talk you into it. I'm not saying that I'm completely right, that I couldn't be wrong here, because I could. But what I see in the scriptures, I know he didn't do anything arbitrarily. He didn't do anything by accident. And the fact that he never commands us to keep Sabbath or any of the other feast days evening to evening, to me, is a big telling sign. And when you look at the symbolism of the evening to evening ones, it makes sense, right? That they start in darkness. So I don't see good evidence for it, which is why I think it's sunrise to sunset or sunrise to sunrise. Those two make far more sense to me scripturally than evening to evening, but I'm not grieving people that keep it evening to evening. I'm not. I just, for me, I don't see it in the scriptures, and I am trying to seek it out and do it his way. So, Andy, the two that are evening to evening are Passover and Day of Atonement. You can find that in Leviticus 23. That's where I'm at. If you do it a different way, like I said, we don't need to throw stones at each other. I will take the full brunt and responsibility on Judgment Day for what I do and what I'm telling people. And I go over my evidence and why I do it in some of the videos I've made in the past, which again are in my Sabbath. So I gotta plug in my phone. It's about to die. And we got a little bit more to read. All right. So there we go. Is that why Messiah said, are there not 12 hours in a day? See, and that's more evidence. I brought that up a little bit ago, but yeah, that's one of the things. Like the day is the period of light, the Yom, right? Yom Teruah, right? So it's the day, the light, right? And he is the light of the world. So, anyways, I just, there's a lot of little things that point to it to me. So that's where I'm at with it, but I'm not grieving any of you. And please, like, I hope this isn't a reason to like stop coming to the studies or learning scripture with me just because, you know, we disagree on a point like that. We've all spent far too much time disagreeing with each other instead of finding reasons to get past it. Like, I'm following my conviction on the Sabbath and I'm keeping it to the best of my ability. And you guys are too. Right? And if you're doing that on an evening to evening Sabbath, even the lunar people, even the lunar and the solar Sabbath people, I don't even grieve them. Like, I disagree with it, and I'll say why I disagree with it, because there's evidence that it's not a seventh-day Sabbath and the cycle is broken. But they are trying to obey Yah. They're doing it to the best of their ability. So I'm not going to grieve them on that. That's between them and Yah. Yah knows their heart posture. Yah knows their level of understanding and what he's revealed to them. And I would rather have them try than all the people that are just like, no, we're not even, like, look at Christians, right? If they were trying to keep Sabbath at the very least how Yah asked them to keep it, I probably wouldn't even spend as much time grieving them. Right? But they do nothing that he said to do on the Sabbath on the day that they call their Sabbath. They call Sunday their Sabbath, and what do? They go to church, and then they go out, and they go to lunch. I mean, that was every Sunday. Every Sunday that I went to church with my grandparents, we went out to lunch right after. We had somebody wait on us hand and foot. We spent money, and he says not to do that on Sabbath. Right? And a lot of, like, all the Christians, they love going out to their football games and stuff on Sundays. Like, there's people that skip church to go to football games on Sunday. And it's like, hello? Like, he gave us very few instructions about keeping the Sabbath, but some big ones. Don't make somebody work for you. And don't work unless you have need of it. And don't exchange money on the Sabbath. That's an obvious one, because if you're exchanging money, there's some form of commerce, of working, of transaction there. So, and that's exactly what all of them do on Sunday. So if they would even keep to the best of their ability, like, hey, like, I don't know how they justify it as a seventh-day Sabbath, again, still, because it's not. And traditionally, it's not the one kept through all of preserved history. Because I have extra biblical texts that confirm that the day of Saturday, the day we call Saturday, was the Sabbath even 2,000 years ago when Yeshua was walking. Like, we have Roman texts that confirm that. So, I'm just saying, like, I don't know how they justify it. But even if you were trying to keep that as a Sabbath, you're not doing the simplest instructions that he gave us for Sabbath. But if you were doing that, if you were trying to keep it like in a biblical way, I wouldn't even spend as much time grieving them about that. Because I'm like, okay, well, at least you're trying to obey him. You're trying to obey his instructions, even the littlest of them. So I would still leave that between them and Yah. But the fact of the matter remains that they're not even trying to keep the littlest instructions for Sabbath on the day that they call their Sabbath, which, again, no good biblical or extra biblical evidence for, but whatever. I would spend less time arguing about it if they at least tried to keep the commandments that Yah gave us for the Sabbath. So anyways, just wanted to talk about that for a quick minute because, this kind of alludes to him not being raised on the Sabbath or stuff like that. And I've seen a lot of good evidence that he was raised on the Sabbath. And the fact that they changed these words in the manuscript, I'm just saying, something worth talking about. But either way, no matter what day he was raised, whether it was Sunday or Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, it does not matter because we still have to keep the Sabbath. The Sabbath is still his day, and God still gave us instructions about the keeping of the Sabbath that we need to walk out to the very best of our ability. So beyond that, like I said, either way, it does not change what we need to do. Our own Messiah said not one dot of the law would pass till heaven and earth do, and they still here. It's still here. So we need to keep the Sabbath no matter what day he was raised, no matter what day the apostles met to break bread with people. We need to keep the seventh-day Sabbath to the very best of our ability and our level of understanding and the instructions that were given to us about how to keep Sabbath. So just wanted to point that out for a minute. But skipping back forward, all right, let's read from verse 4. We'll just read from verse 4 and keep going from there. And for fear of him, the guards trembling and became like dead men. But the angel said to the woman, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Yeshua who is crucified. He is not here, for he has risen." And he said, "Come, see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell the disciples that he has risen from the dead, and behold, he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him. See, I have told you." So they depart quickly from the tomb with fear of great joy and ran to tell his disciples. And behold, Yeshua met them, and he said, "Greetings." And they came up and took hold of his feet and worshipped him. Then Yeshua said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me." While they were going, behold, some of the guards went into the city and told the chief priests all that had taken place. And when they had assembled even after this, even after there's proof that he rose from the dead, they're still being wicked. Still insane. Like, the hardness of these people's hearts must have just been unbelievable. They were made out of stone. Like, how could you, again, all the stuff that took place at the crucifixion, all the stuff that took place before the crucifixion, and all the stuff that took place after, and they're still acting this way. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. It's so dumb. So dumb. They gave a sufficient sum of money to the soldiers. Now they're trying to pay people off. And said, "Tell people his disciples came by night and stole him away while we were sleeping." Yeah, okay. "And if this comes to the governor's ears, we will satisfy him and keep yet out of trouble." So they took the money and did as they were directed. And this story has been spread among the Jews to this day. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee to the mountain to which Yeshua had directed them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him. But some doubted. And Yeshua came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. This is why their sacrifices were no longer acceptable. All of the authority of the priesthood was given to Yeshua. All of it. They didn't want to yield their power, but this is why their sacrifices weren't accepted. This is why it talks about in the prophets how their sacrifices would not be accepted. And why their sacrifices that they're about to start doing right now are not going to be accepted. They are not submitting to Yeshua's authority, to his priesthood. Again. This is why fire is rained down from heaven on them. I'm convinced of it. Right? It's my opinion until it happens, and then it's prophecy come to life. So we'll see, but I'm pretty convinced about it. Oh, thank you, Amy. I appreciate you you stopping by. We're almost done anyways, actually. We've got a couple more verses here, and then we're going to be done for the day. But thank you for joining. If you want to catch the last few minutes of this, it'll be on my YouTube tomorrow. But love you, sister. Have a blessed rest of your Shabbat. All right. All authority has in heaven and in earth has been given to me. Now, here's two of the most important verses in the New Testament. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations. All. He didn't say go to white people, go to black people, go to this bloodline. He said go to all nations and make disciples of them. All. You know what all means in Greek? It means all. Do you know what all means in Aramaic? It means all. Right? So he wasn't stopping at bloodline or skin color here. So again, another reason that I can't get on board with these your skin color matters more than your heart posture doctrines. It's just not in the book. It's not in the totality of the book. But anyways, go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Verse 20, pay attention. Teaching them to observe all. There it is again. All that I have commanded you. Well, what have we read throughout Matthew? He commanded you to keep the Torah a lot of times. He commanded you to follow him. Walk in his footsteps. And what did he do? He kept the Torah. He didn't let man-made doctrine take him off the path that Yah laid out for us from the very beginning of the foundation of humankind. A lot of times he commanded you to keep the Torah. Not just love God, not just love your neighbors yourself, which honestly you can't even do if you don't keep God's commandments. Read 1 John 5, 2 through 3. 1 John 5, 2 through 3. Literally says you know that you're loving your neighbors yourself and you're loving God when you keep his commandments. You literally can't love Yah without keeping his commandments, and you can't love your neighbors yourself without keeping his commandments. So all those people that say, oh, I'm loving my neighbors myself and I'm loving God, but I don't got to keep those Torah commandments. Sorry, that's not how it works. You're just doing what's right in your own eyes. But the point remains, Yeshua said those were the greatest commandments. He didn't say they were the only commandments. And he said all the other commandments hang on those too, because they do. Every single commandment that God ever gave was how to show him love, or how to show your neighbor that you love them. You love your neighbor by not committing adultery with his wife, by not stealing from him, by not bearing false witness against him. You love God by not having graven images, by not having any other gods before him, by keeping the Sabbath, by not taking his name in vain. You love him by keeping the dietary laws. You love him by keeping the feast days. You love him by doing all the things you think are arbitrary for cleanliness purposes. That's how you love God. That's how he says you love him. That's not my opinion. That is what Scripture actually says, and it says it a lot of times in both the Old and New Testament. So it's not just the two greatest, and it's not just the 10 commandments. You can't even keep the 10 commandments without knowing the other commandments, like Sabbath. Again, you can't just say, I'm going to keep the Sabbath, unless you're doing what's right in your own eyes. You have to know how he told you to keep the Sabbath. And he says, hey, when you keep the Sabbath, don't buy, don't sell, don't work, don't make somebody work, right? Do these things to keep the Sabbath holy and set apart, different from the rest of the week. So you can't even keep the Sabbath without knowing the other commandments. Right? So I'm just saying, like, this whole idea that you can keep these big commandments, these chapter header commandments, without understanding how Yah defines keeping them is just walking in ignorance. It's walking in your own eyes. Well, what's right in your own eyes? Following men and their opinions and their doctrines. Right? But Yah actually tells you, hey, this is how you keep the Sabbath. Hey, this is how you show me you love me. Hey, this is how you do this. This is how you shouldn't do this. And his commandments define how to keep all of the big ones. It defines right ruling and justice and mercy. So you can't obey God. You can't love him without obedience. You can't love your neighbors yourself without obedience. You can't do those things without acknowledging how the Most High defines how to do them. But right here, verse 20, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. He commanded us to keep the Torah. He commanded us to do the will of his Father, which is laid out in the beginning of the Bible. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. So, again, you can't do these things without being obedient to the Most High and acknowledging all of his commandments. Not just the ones you like and agree with. So that's how we honor the sacrifice of our Messiah, Yeshua. We listen to him. He said, go to all nations. Go to anybody that will listen. Doesn't matter their skin color. Doesn't matter their bloodline. Go to anyone who will listen and teach them to observe all that I have commanded you, which is the Torah. So that's how we honor the Messiah. We honor the Messiah by doing what he told us to do, by listening to his instructions, by opening the doors of the covenant to anybody that's willing to fear God and keep his commandments and observe the instructions of our Messiah by walking in his footsteps literally. That's how you do that. Very important to understand. If you're ever defending obedience in the scriptures to somebody, a lot of people, I literally couldn't tell you how many times people have said, oh, that was just the Jews. He just commanded them to keep the Torah. Nope. Sorry. This is proof that he commanded all people of all nation to do it. And, I want to read this to you guys in Acts. I want to read this to you in Acts real quick. We're going to get there soon because we're starting Acts next week. But I want to read this verse to you. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it up. All right, it's in Acts 17, verse 30. Acts 17, verse 30. The times of ignorance Yah overlooked, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent. The times of ignorance Yah overlooked, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent. And what does it mean to repent? To turn away from your wickedness. Well, what is wickedness? It's defined by God in the Torah. Sure, a lot of people can agree on some of what wickedness is. There's not a mainstream Christian, I hope, on this earth that would say it's not wickedness to commit adultery or to steal or to kill somebody. Murder is a better term, but there, there's not a mainstream Christian church that wouldn't agree on that, right? But then they'll flip around and they'll say, oh, but the dietary laws and breaking the Sabbath aren't wickedness. Well, that's not what the Bible says. Yah literally says it's an abomination to eat unclean. And he says it's deserving of death to break the Sabbath. And you're sitting here like it's not wickedness? Right? There's even the Church of Satan and Buddhists. They'll all agree you shouldn't murder people. Right on. Right? Like, we can all agree to some points of wickedness. All of us. Even if you don't believe in the Elohim of the Bible, there are people that can agree to some points of wickedness. Yeah, we shouldn't steal from each other. Yeah, you shouldn't murder each other. Agreed. You'll find plenty of Satanists that will die on the hill for that. They'll say, absolutely, you should never do that to somebody. right? But then they'll turn around and they ignore all the other stuff that God says is wicked. And we, as believers, shouldn't do that, right? And we shouldn't close the gates to anybody who's willing to acknowledge righteousness, the righteousness of Yah, and the authority of Messiah Yeshua, and turn from that wickedness. If somebody's willing to acknowledge that the God and the Messiah of the Bible are real, and they commanded you to live by this set of laws, so that if they define this as wickedness, it's wicked, I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care what country you were born in. I don't care what your ancestors did. If you are willing to acknowledge the Elohim, the Creator, who the Bible talks about, if you're willing to acknowledge that Messiah Yeshua walked on this earth and he is the Messiah prophesied about and he gave us instructions to live by, and if you're willing to acknowledge how our Creator and how our Messiah defines wickedness from the beginning of the Bible to the very end of it, then welcome, brothers and sisters. You are my family. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care what your bloodline is. Right? He said go to all nations and baptize them and teach all of them to do everything that he commanded them. That's his words, not mine. He said go to all nations. He said to teach them to observe all that I have commanded you. And he commanded us to keep the Torah and to do the will of his Father. And that's defined for us in the beginning of the Bible. And I'm going to teach that to anybody that'll listen. All right. So, anyways, that was a great study. We could read the other Gospels, Mark and Luke. They're very similar. We get more details in some that aren't in others. Because remember, these are eyewitness accounts. And what one witness thinks is important or preserves is different from another one. So there's other things in the synoptic Gospels that are very interesting. Like after Yeshua is raised, somebody mistakes him for a gardener, right? And that's very interesting. And I never put 2 cents of thought into that until recently. Again, Yah does nothing by chance or accident. Nothing. Not even the lady mistaking him for a gardener. And think about that. What is constantly talked about, not just in the Gospels, but in the Bible, about how we are grafted in. And it constantly uses the olive tree as an example of that. Now, think about that. The olive tree has the same amount of chromosomes as a human being. That's no accident. There's no accident that Yah chose the olive tree to record for us in this book about us being grafted in. And what do gardeners do? They graft in branches to olive trees, but it takes a master gardener to do that, right? And they're literally taking one part of a tree and putting it into another part of a tree to where there's no distinction. They become the same tree. And the fact that Yeshua was mistaken as a gardener after his resurrection is, again, a simple nothing fact to most people. You just read it, and like I did, I've read it before, and I never took it to heart. It would never be something that I would quote before. Like, oh, yeah, why is it, But then thinking about how we're grafted in and thinking about how a gardener, it would take a gardener, a master gardener, to be able to graft one tree into another tree to make them indistinguishable from one another. It's wild, right? And so that's not even an accident. That's not even an accident that Yeshua was mistaken as a gardener. And you find that in one of the other Gospels. And John is the one that differs substantially from the synoptic Gospels in that it records what I believe is the sovereignty, the authority, the kingship, the spiritual side of Yeshua more than the human side. I would say that Matthew, Mark, and Luke record the human nature of the Messiah, and John leans more towards the godly nature of Messiah Yeshua. So it's just interesting. If we were going to study another gospel soon, I would want to go through John because that one's really, really good. But anyways, we'll leave it at that for now. Thank you guys, all of you that have studied the book of Matthew with me. I look forward to starting Acts with you guys next week. Again, I'm caught up on my emails, except I just received a couple within the last couple of days that I haven't replied to. But if you sent me an email from from more than a week ago, even if it was months ago, and I didn't respond to it, it means I didn't get it. So if you still need an answer to that, email me again, sheepdogministries@hotmail.com, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. I'm glad to be caught up on my emails. I'm going to try not to get behind on them, but email me, sheepdogministries@hotmail.com, if you need anything. If you sent me an email asking me a question or anything and I did not respond to you, I didn't get it, send it again. So other than that, I look forward to spending some time, Yah willing, next week in the book of Acts with you guys. I have my studies through Job and Psalms on my YouTube. I just put up another two. I put up another study in Psalms last night, and one in Job was today over on YouTube if you guys want to see those. We still are going through Exodus and Enoch on Tuesday nights on TikTok, 7 p.m. Central. Yah willing, I hope to see you guys there for that one as well. It's been another great study. A lot of meat for the end times in Exodus and in First Enoch. So other than that, please keep Brother Dustin in your prayers. Please keep my wife in your prayers. She's really going through it with these Braxton Hicks contractions. She's getting beat up, and we're still 3 weeks away. So please keep my wife and my unborn child in your prayers. I need all the righteous people I can get praying for that. So please do that if you can. Keep my wife and my child in your prayers, and my family just in general. You guys prayed for me. I had a massive headache when I first started this, and I feel much better now. It's nearly gone. So please thank you guys for your prayers. I know some of you were praying for me when I said that. The prayers of the righteous go a long way, even for something simple like a headache. So thank you guys for doing that. My wife's name is Allie. If you could keep her in your prayers, and our child is not named yet because we don't know if it's a boy or a girl. So please keep my wife and my child in your prayers. If you can, keep Brother Dustin in your prayers. If you guys need any prayer requests, please reach out to me and let me know if you need something, and I'll bring it to the congregation. But thank you guys. Please keep them in your prayers. I know I keep beating that one, but prayer goes a long way, and we need it. So thank you guys so much for doing that. Other than that, I hope to see you guys for our upcoming studies, both on TikTok and YouTube, and for the feast day studies that are coming up, which I'll make short videos about and put them up in the coming week once I know exactly when and where. Likely it will be the 24th at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, likely for the Feast of Trumpets study, but that's not set in stone yet. So I will let you guys know soon. And no matter what you're doing, if you're not going to be with me on the live streams for the feast days, I hope you guys have a blessed, wonderful feast day. Like trumpets, even Day of Atonement. It's a somber day. It's a hard day. You're afflicting yourself, but it's still joyous, because if it wasn't for that, none of us would enter into the kingdom of Yah without escaping the judgment to come. So it's better to afflict yourself than to be forced to afflict yourself. And we'll talk about that come Day of Atonement. But anyways, I love you guys. Thank you so much for spending some of your Shabbat with me to study the scriptures. And may the Most High bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he lift up his countenance upon all of us and give us wonderful peace. In the name of Messiah Yeshua. I love you guys so much. I hope you have a blessed rest of your Shabbat. And Yah willing, I will see you soon. I love you guys. Reach out if you need anything at all.